Welcome one and all to episode 50 of the Megavision Show, the companion podcast to Megavision's magazine. Today is September the 6th, 2020. I'm Graham, the production editor of Megavisions, and joining me this week we have Chris, the editor-in-chief of Megavisions, and Scotty Moe, the managing editor for Megavisions. And today we've got a special show for you. It's now September, so that means that next weekend, on Saturday, September the 12th, we are going to be hosting the 24-hour Dreamless Dreamcast Marathon. Woohoo! So for this week's show, we're going to have a Dreamcast special. We're going to be looking at some of your favourite Dreamcast memories, some of our top Dreamcast games, some of the weirdest Dreamcast games we've encountered. Plus, we'll look at some of the key advancements to the gaming industry that the Dreamcast helped deliver, our top experiences with the console, our reactions when we heard it was dead. And then we'll look into the current state of the Dreamcast, some games, and awesome ways fans have kept the dream alive. So stay tuned and let's get on with the show. So this show, we're going to go through some of our Dreamcast memories, talk about some Dreamcast games, weirdest Dreamcast games we've encountered, hear some of your thoughts, some of the feedback that we've reached out for from our listeners. And yeah, just talk about some of the key experiences for the Dreamcast. So it's going to be a fun, dream-tastic show, I think. Yeah.
So dreamy.
Yeah. whatever made-up word we can come up with, that's what it is. So let's start with, well, before we do that, let's quickly go into what we'll be doing this week. So, Chris, why don't you crack away, my friend?
Sure. I feel excited because I feel like I actually have something to talk about because it's like the last few episodes, I feel like I haven't been doing anything. So we finally got out of the house over this past week, and I took the kids to go see a movie. It sounds kind of crazy. This is the first time we've actually gone to a movie theater since.
You're a nut. You're a madman, Chris.
I think the last movie we watched was Bloodshot in theaters, and that was like right before they shut everything down.
That was on the cusp.
Yeah, because it was in theaters for like opening weekend, and then that following week, I think it got shut down.
Right.
And it made a very, very bad, that box office numbers for that opening week. But anyway, we went and saw New Mutants, and I was really excited about this. I think this was Fox's last X-Men movie before it like officially transferred over everything to Disney. Because I guess what ended up happening, the director shot like a post-credit scene hinting at a new villain coming in and starting a whole new like sequel and everything. But because Disney purchased all the like Marvel stuff, they ended up having like cancel any possible sequel. So this is just a one-off movie. But before just actually getting in the movie, I will say like the Regal that we went to, we had to go to Pennsylvania to actually watch it because everything in New Jersey still shut down. I would say like it was very good because it was very clean. We were actually the only people that we saw like in the theater when we went there. Aside from, the actual employees, we didn't see any other people. There was no one in our theater at all other than us. So it was basically like five or six of us just chilling in the theater. I wasn't really familiar with the New Mutants before going into this movie. I remember the comic, but I didn't really read it much growing up. What about you guys? Have you heard of New Mutants or heard of the movie at all?
I've heard of the movie. It's been in my consciousness somewhere, but I've never seen it or, like the old like comic books and stuff. I knew there was a thing, but yeah, no idea.
Scotty, what about you?
Same. Pretty much the same.
Yeah. It's basically about like young kids that are probably like, like 15 years old or so, 13 to 15. They're just getting their powers. And so they take them to this facility where they're trying to, learn to control their powers and everything. And all this craziness starts happening. And, they have to end up like coming together as a group and using their powers to, fight off this, enemy. I don't want to go into any spoilers, but I thought it was really good. It felt in certain times more like a horror movie than your traditional superhero movie. If you watch the trailer, you definitely get those vibes.
But that's the one that looked like Hostel or something. Kind of. Vibe to it.
It's not that bad. It was rated PG-13. I took Odin with me to go see it. And
can we get
didn't feel like
it was take on it right there.
Yeah. He's like, don't tell anyone. I'm not 13. But I thought I didn't think it was too over the top for Odin. There were some parts, like there was these like kind of Slender Man looking guys that come around. They're really have long claws and stuff. They were pretty creepy. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. But I thought it was a good movie. If you guys get a chance to rent it, I would definitely suggest a rental. I don't know if I would suggest going to the theater to go see it. I'd say just wait and chill.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
A quick follow up that I'd noted here. Bloodshot, you mentioned, sucked with numbers due to COVID, which is funny because then on the other side, the Sonic movie, I mean, it did already. It came out decently before COVID hit hard, but now it's like the best rated superhero movie of the year, and I'm like, we need to keep a perspective here, people. Like, I'm saying that in favor of Bloodshot and against the Sonic movie, kind of. But, but it's just, okay, come on, Graham. But I'm saying like Bloodshot probably should have done something different. But speaking of movies, I'll ask, did you end up seeing Bill and Ted 3?
I did see it.
So I was going to bring this up when I talked about my week. It's okay.
Sorry, I didn't read the outline, I guess.
No, don't worry. It's fine. Basically, I can't watch Bill and Ted 3 yet because it's not out yet in the UK.
Oh my God, Chris was totally making that joke.
Yeah, it was funny. I was browsing like the stores like Amazon, Microsoft, Xbox, and all the like digital stores. And I was like, I can't find it. Yeah, try looking on Zune and Napster and everything. But yeah, I couldn't find it. So then I Googled it. And it's like release date is, I think it's next week or the week after. So yeah, it's in a couple of weeks. I don't because every other digital release seems to come out the same day because it's digital. There's no thing. For some reason it's not in the UK or Europe. So yeah. So hopefully next week or the week after I'll be able to give you an update. Yeah.
Well, okay, Chris, did you like it? And we can talk about it next time with Graham when he's seen it.
Yes, I did enjoy it. I watched it. I will say, hearing the criticism of Keanu and his, I guess some would say lack of effort. It was definitely noticeable. I don't know if I was listening to the Red Letter Media. I was listening to their review over it, and I kind of agree with what they were saying. I think it made a little bit of sense. They're basically saying that they don't think Keanu Reeves as an actor can go there in his mind anymore and be that character of Bill.
Yeah,
like he was. I'm sorry, Ted.
Right.
I just made the same thing that reporter did. Man, that was hilarious. But I agree. I just don't think he's done too much serious roles, and to try to kind of go back and just do this comedic role, and especially jump back into that mindset that he was in, 20 something years ago. And so I can understand that. It was more than 20, wasn't it? It was like 30.
It was. Yeah, I know what you're saying though, because Red Letter Media is pretty harsh with a lot of their critiques on stuff. I don't know any of the characters' names, but like an example regarding the Bill and Ted thing, how one of them, not Rich, was picking apart that one scene where the dubbing was done wrong. I'm like, dude, relax. But I think I do agree with them. Whereas mentally, Keanu Reeves has had a rough life outside of acting, but he's not very social about anything really. So I can understand how mentally he could not really transport himself back to that role. That in mind, Alex Winter just does carry the movie on his back in terms of his character portrayal as Bill. But yeah, I'm glad you dug it though. But we can go into more detail when Graham's seen it as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be fun. Maybe we could do maybe next. Oh, man, maybe not next week. God, because that next week's going to be our post Dreamcast Marathon. So maybe we'll do like a at the end of the podcast, we can do like a spoiler talk on Bill and Ted here in a few weeks.
Yeah,
and we really jump.
Yeah, maybe
that'd be fun.
It's rare that we have all seen a recent movie, so we could even do like a spoiler cast or something.
Yeah. Graham, I guess since you started talking about that, what else have you been doing?
Okay, few little things. Today I've spent pretty much all day reorganizing / cleaning my this room, for next week's Dreamcast Marathon. And I found out that I've got about 12 Dreamcast controllers here in the flat, and I've got more at my parents' house. So right. I don't know how many I've got in total, but yeah, I've got this big box full of like controllers, and most of them are Dreamcast controllers. So
nice, very nice. Oops, sorry about that.
So that's a thing. I don't know how I managed to accumulate that many, but yeah. And I've also got a few pickups this week. So just randomly, I felt like I really wanted to play. And this is actually quite timely because I know the Avengers video games come out recently.
Mm-hmm.
So randomly the other day, I was thinking I really want to play. And this is good. This is crazy. Thor.
Oh no!
And Captain America on the Xbox 360.
I don't know what's wrong with you.
I never got to play them when they came out.
No one has ever said, I want to play Thor.
Well, there's a reason why I thought about it. I'll tell you that in a second. But here's the thing.
You thought about it.
Yeah.
I bet I can think of the reason, Graham.
Okay. Well, wait, hold that thought, and I'll ask you in a second. But the thing is, someone told me that Captain America is actually not a terrible game because it originally started as a completely different kind of game made by another developer. Yeah. And I thought, I want to test it out. And Thor, I just thought, why not? Because they're also very cheap at the moment. Like, I'm not really losing out on anything. Also,
because no one wants to play those games, Graham. No one wants them. There's a reason why they're cheap.
I don't care. I want to play them. I want to test them out. Because there's a few of these games, like I actually quite enjoyed the Hulk game that Sega put out. I didn't hate Iron Man that much. Iron Man was fine. Iron Man 2 is terrible. Like, I will go out there and say that. But they say, Chris, why do you think I thought about Thor and Captain America?
I would say you thought about Thor because you're also playing Story of Thor for a Megavisions article.
It's interesting you should say that because you're completely correct. So, yeah. The thing is, I've actually...
Look at that box art.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
So, the thing is, I own this, and then I can't find it. It's somewhere at my parents' house, and I can't find it. So, I've rebought it. For the magazine. I was just like, I literally couldn't find it. And it's weird because all my Saturn games are on the shelf. They're either here or the shelf at my parents' house. And I'm like, I just cannot find it. So
it's not like a rare game or anything like that. It's a fairly... I mean, so I wouldn't expect it was very expensive, was it?
No, not really. To be honest, I can't actually remember. It was under £40. So for a decent Saturn game, that's not too bad.
Oh, okay. That's a completely different game title in the US. That's
so in America it's called Beyond Oasis. In the UK it's called Story of Thor. So Story of Thor 2 because the first one was on the Mega Drive or Genesis, if you will.
Yeah,
I think the second one was Legend of Oasis, wasn't it?
Oh, sorry, Legend of Oasis.
The Saturn one.
Yeah, the Saturn one was Legend of Oasis. Beyond Oasis was the Genesis.
Right. Okay.
Version.
So yeah, something of Oasis is what it is for some reason.
If I didn't correct you, someone in the comments certainly would.
It's fine. It's okay. Yeah. So that is why I sort of randomly thought about the Thor video game, and then I started thinking about Captain America, and I was like, why not? And then I got them, and like the Avengers game came out, and I was like, oh, well, okay, that seems like I've got them because of the Avengers game, but not at all. It was because of this. Right. So there we go. But that's basically it this week. That's pretty much what I've been doing, and yeah. So Scotty, what have you been up to?
Yeah, not a whole lot, honestly. My brain has been elsewhere because I'm getting ready for my vacation, which I just kind of coupled into the marathon because no PTO has been used on conventions this year. That's paid time off. So I was like, oh, Labor Day is the week of the Dreamcast Marathon. and I was going to take Friday off, and usually the Monday following the marathon. You know what? I'll just take the week into it and half the week after. Screw it. I got to use my PTO. So my brain has kind of been elsewhere, but we did get a Fire Stick. We installed that yesterday, and basically just browse Shudder, and that's all we've done with the Fire Stick so far.
Brilliant.
You guys,
we added like 40 movies to our list. So
there's so much good stuff on Shudder.
Yeah, we were looking through stuff, and I have a question for you, Chris. If you've noticed, what the fuck is Jerry O'Connell doing
on Shudder?
We somehow stumbled across 2 movies that he's in. Both of them look like absolute garbage. One of them is like he's like making his way through softcore porn movies in a horror film somehow as a hero, and the other one he's like in this vampire Satan ritual worshipping cult thing to try to help a teenage girl or a virgin or something. And I'm just like, these both came out in like 2019. I follow him on Instagram, and he didn't mention a thing about them, so that kind of says where his confidence level's at for them, I guess.
Wow.
No, the other movie, I forget what it's called. That was a good movie. It has Alexandra Daddario in it. Johnny Knoxville's in that movie. Is this crazy
Satan
preacher?
Worshiping one or the other one?
The second film you said, where it's basically it's like about this weird cult that is going around killing people.
Oh yeah. That one looks kind of interesting and probably funny. We might check that one out. But it was just like, for those that don't know, this is Jerry O'Connell from obvious Sliders fame.
Okay, I was thinking that.
I was going
to ask, yeah.
Oh, Graham knows that. Okay. No, but that's kind of all we've done with that. But finally, it's out. I've been talking about it for a month and a half or 2 months or whatever. Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake is out now. I was gonna show off the case because I bought the game and I left it in the hallway or something. Whatever, you guys know what it looks like. But I hated every second of it at first because my muscle memory. Literally the night before, I had played Tony Hawk 2 on stream with Tornado Jones, Corey, on the Thursday Night Throwdown, and we were having fun. And then I go into this, and I'm like hitting the shoulder buttons and just launching out of the rope ramps and stuff, like not doing any tricks, bailing left and right. I'm like, what is going on? Like, did I forget how to play video games? In my brain, it went from that doesn't make sense to I'm doing everything I ever did to play this game, and I was decent at this series. To, am I getting too old to play video games? Do I not know how to play video games? And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? So finally, I played the tutorial. I looked at the controls. Apparently, R1 and L1 are what you use to rotate your skater in midair. L2 and R2 are what you do for reverts to essentially exit the ramps and stuff. So I wasn't going crazy. I wasn't hitting like a button and it was doing something wrong. I was just hitting the wrong button because I'm a goddamn idiot. That in mind, it's fun. It just feels good, just like the old games. One solid complaint, and this is in the notes here, I have cynical old man complaint about save files because, one, I realized that aside from the first Tony Hawk, every one of those, I created a character to look like me, and I had more fun being the skater in a game that I could never be in real life. Because I did kind of skateboard as a kid, and I just suck. But it was fun to make a skater and assign his moves and all that stuff, but the creative skater in this sucks. There's like 16 faces. You can't, granted, it's not Fallout 4 or something. I'm not expecting to like elongate my nose when I want to and like flush out my cheeks and stuff. Like, but the faces are so generic. So Rachel and I made characters, and they're like the prettier version of ourselves that you would see in a reality dating show or something. Like, they don't look like us at all. And
I made it look more ugly to make them look like us.
You really do. Like, we could not figure it out. Like, I looked closer, like the face that looked closer to I don't even know. I'm not even gonna. This is gonna be another rant. But so what I'm getting at is I made my skater, and I was excited to go through some of the campaigns. So I started the campaign, and then Rachel played. She wakes up earlier than I do, and she got up earlier yesterday, and she made a skater. And I saw that she had a skater, and I was like, "Oh, did you start the campaign?" She's like, "No, I don't. I didn't want to erase the game." I'm like, "Erase my game? I don't think that'll happen." So I go to her skater. And then I go back to career mode or whatever it is. And it's like, oh yeah, there's all my progress. There's all my points. And in the top, this game, it's Activision, but it looks ripe for microtransaction. Like, very much so. Because you earn your stats, and you have always in the top right corner is your name and your experience and your money you've earned and like your statistics and crap. So I'm just like, I really hope they don't do it like that. But so I'm like, no, there's gotta be a way you can create a skater and have your own progress. So I'm like looking through all the menus. I'm like, oh no, I'm forgetting what generation of console we're in. So I back out to the crossbar screen, the dashboard. I close the game. I hold down the home button, log in as her PS4 username, open the game back up. There's a new campaign and career for her. So I miss basic save files and memory cards, I guess. And people are going to be like, oh, Scotty, why do you do that? You don't need, well, yeah, look at Chris over there. He's got 3 switches because that's just how it is today. Fucking shut up and deal with it. No, this is the basic problem with that. She and I love our created skaters. We can never play against each other with our created skaters on the same console because of this. Like, think about that for a second. How stupid and backwards is that? That she has a skater on this console with this game. She can earn all her stats. She could create a skater under my profile, but she'd have no stats. So one of us would have to like play the game through twice to have our beefed up created skater to play against each other. Now, granted, we're probably not going to skate against each other that much, but it's just the fact of the matter that I had to like convince myself like this is so backwards and why I hate new games a lot of the times. And I know I sound like an old man screaming at clouds conspiracy theory thing, but like, am I wrong to be upset about that? Like, does that make sense, or am I just crazy?
No, these are things that were things we had, features we had back in the day, which became common, for us growing up. So these new consoles, which are meant to be able to do all that stuff and more, they're getting rid of these features and stuff, and it is really annoying. I've seen that with other games that it just drives me nuts. Like, it's like they keep removing co-op, like local co-op and local multiplayer in games just to have online multiplayer. I'm like, yeah, sometimes I actually want to sit in the same room with someone and have a split screen. It's a thing I'm used to.
Yeah,
it's fine.
And it's nuts. And then on the other end of it, take Streets of Rage 4 for example. You can have 4-player mode, and also Toe Jam and Earl back in the group. You can have 4-player multiplayer, but that's only local co-op. That would be great online, though. It's such a weird, and I understand that's more with development time than some other stuff. But it was just a weird thing because like that was the fun thing of Tony Hawk for us, and I haven't been excited about a newish game in a while aside from this one. So when we sat down and that kind of hit me, I was just like, man, I hate video games. But still, the game is fun. It feels right. It feels good. They've added extra challenges in there. All the new music is great. It was really cool to hear different bands in there, and newer bands and older bands, the old songs, the good songs and stuff. So it's cool to just play it. Like I actually said to Rachel, I'm like, do you want me to leave the disc down here? Because I'll take the case up to show in the podcast if you want to play it. She's like, yeah, leave it down. I'll probably play it. It's like, that's cool. Like my girlfriend wants to play a video game. That's a whole other thing, I guess. But I'm not saying she hates video games, but that was the hype behind this release. So I'm happy it's out. I'm happy it's doing well. It came out at a good time. And one other side note, it is, I think, the first video game to actually acknowledge COVID and the quarantine in-game.
Oh, wow.
Because it has billboards like in the school level and stuff saying like, thanks, we got to all work together to this. Be sure to swing in and pick up your belongings, and we'll see you in the fall. Be strong, be together, like stuff like that. It's really cool to see that. So
awesome.
I've rambled a lot about Tony Hawk, but it's good. Big shock. My hot take.
Brilliant.
One last thing I'll say with the skater mode, you have smart parts in it now. I don't know if you guys ever mess with level creator stuff, but it blew my mind because instead of like laying down a quarter piece, a side piece, a half pipe, or whatever, you can do all that, but you can put down a smart piece, which is like, say you put a quarter pipe, and if you click on it, you can drag it and just make that as long as you want to and like loop around and make this incredibly weird shape and then connect it again. So there's going to be tons of dicks all over the internet, I'm sure. But it just blew my mind like how extensive that is. So I might actually mess with that a little bit, but we'll see. So
awesome.
That's me.
Brilliant. Cool. And with that, let's move on to Scotty Moe's Mail Sack of Wonder.
Oh, yeah.
Sack of Wonder!
Let's do that.
It's the mail sack. We got the mail sack. Beautiful mail sack. Oh, nope, that's wrong. That's very wrong.
Oh, good God. So we're going to do this. Got this sack. We're going to... Oh, can't see it that well. Unhinge that mother. And then bring out this guy.
Oh,
because it's themed. for the Dreamcast. Okay. And so I think what we can do here, guys, is each read one of these because they're pretty extensive, but it's really great that they are. So I am very excited about our results. Stocks are up. Because we said it's a Dreamcast themed episode. We said we want not just random questions, which are good. And, sometimes you don't get a lot, but we get some good ones. But this time we asked for like stories, memories. What's a game you remember? What's a multiplayer experience you love? Were you in line on 99.99 for your console launch? And so we got some good stories. So I'll read the first one here by Mr. Haru. Actually, let me get a drink. I'm drying out. Sorry. Anyway, so Mr. Haru said, I remember... Oh, sorry. Need to move this over, even though it'll make my face nice and white. I remember saving up for it and having help from my mom to get the system. I don't recall how I found out about it, but I subscribed to the Dreamcast magazine as well and got Sonic Adventure as my first and only game at the time in one VMU. I was all on board to see Sega video games since I had missed the boat for the entirety of anything post-Genesis. My own underrated gem that I say almost never gets mentioned is Evolution 2, a JRPG that I recall sinking loads of hours into and beating, though I would never own it until my first Too Many Games convention 2 years ago. My only lament was I never was able to get online with the Dreamcast, so playing Phantasy Star Online was done entirely alone, although I did have an imagination of what it would have been like if I ever signed on. My intense love of the unique and colorful Jet Grind radio is what spurred my love for that type of music and eventually paved the way for my love of role-playing, as it was Jet Grind radio, not Sonic, that led me to make my own OC, or original character.
Ooh.
So, do you guys want to go through all of these, or do we want to comment on each one?
I guess we can just comment on each one real quick. I will second his love for Evolution 2. I really enjoy the Evolution series. I never beat 2, but I played through most of it. I did get through Evolution 1. They were good games, and they actually got I can't remember. I think they got packaged together and ported over to the GameCube, didn't they?
Did they?
Really?
I didn't know
I think
that.
they had a GameCube
The old
release.
Google bot machine.
Yeah, Google that real quick. I'll say I do remember Evolution. I had that one Christmas, and I wasn't super into it, but I do remember how goofy and cool it was that the characters essentially had like big pocket knives for weapons, if I'm remembering correctly. Like I remember the dude would whip out a giant fork to fight the enemies and stuff. Really like the artwork though. I regrettably donated that to a buddy in college. In college, I got rid of a lot of Dreamcast games because I just didn't understand what I had then, I think. But I also, and this is one thing I love about the marathon, I love introducing people to games that I really enjoy. So my buddy who had a Dreamcast but like no library, I just gave him a lot of my games. And one of them I remember was the first Evolution, because he very much sparked an interest into the JRPG more than I did.
Okay.
So it was called Evolution Worlds, and it basically had both of the games on one disc. So
Yeah.
Is that on GameCube?
it was on
Yeah,
GameCube. It
on
released in
GameCube.
North America December 2nd, 2002.
There was also
that explains why I didn't hear about it.
There was also an Evolution was also on the Neo Geo Pocket Color as Evolution Eternal Dungeons.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah.
I didn't know that. That would be
There
fun
you
to go.
I do recall that, because
Ooh.
I want that.
How much does that go for? Because I'm
Dude, it's Neo Geo Pocket Color, so along with anything Neo Geo, Godspeed.
Wow. Awesome.
Neo Geo Color Pocket, whatever, would be the reason I ever get that analog pocket, just to have all those games on there some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So, should we move on to the next one?
I'll say this real quick before we move on. I see a completed listing for Eternal Dungeons. It's complete.
Should we
It's
guess?
sold for
Should we guess?
130.
Never mind.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. $130. So it's not
That's
cheap.
stupid.
Damn. Okay.
That's because nobody keeps those cardboard boxes, though.
Hmm. Anyway.
Who wants to go next?
So I could go for next, I guess. So Mithril Fox has said, I sadly was a late adopter of the Dreamcast. By the time I had an Xbox 360, I already loved the games Sega had to offer, and I wanted to experience the Dreamcast since one game shop I was frequently visiting still had plenty of those games in stock. One Christmas, I ended up with what I desired, bundled with Sonic Adventure, Choo Choo Rocket, Metropolis Street Racer, Jet Set Radio, and Crazy Taxi. My games expansion got bigger since, but sadly I missed out on the online experiences, the demo discs, and the other good stuff. I can go on an essay about this, but I'll keep my experiences kinda short. I fell in love with Metropolis Street Racer and Crazy Taxi most. I enjoyed Jet Set Radio, but I was already spoiled by Future and a bit more. Still, it was great to experience the original. I ended up with Metal Gear Solid and Dreamcast much later, but it was a paid to play at one point because of my port 2 of my Dreamcast didn't work. I'm sure you understand. Oh, okay. I get, yeah. Port, does he mean a controller port, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, because in Metal Gear Solid, there's the bit with the second controller port. That's the only reason why I'm thinking that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Finally, because of my desire to... Because I don't think you can beat that boss without that, can you? Or I don't know. Anyway, fine. Finally, because of my desire to discover more of this gem of a console, that's how I eventually found the Dreamcast Marathon, woohoo, that Scotty hosted, and founded my way eventually to Mega Visions magazine. That's us, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's all of us. So I ask now, what games have you not tried on Dreamcast before that you'd want to play, given that money and availability isn't an issue? And if the prospect of a Dreamcast Mini existed, what would you ideally seek in that system? So just quickly, the first part of that question, we're actually going to cover later in the show. And the second part of that question, we have kind of covered in the past. So do you want to talk about that, the Dreamcast Mini? Because we've spoken about that in the past before.
Really. Yeah, I mean, it would be all the hits. If I could sum it up, it'd be all the hits and then also Ill Bleed on my Mini.
Brilliant. But any comments on Mithril Fox experience there?
That's a damn good bundle you got at first with your Dreamcast, dude. That's like, aside from, I think all he needed was a fighting game in there, and that would have been every genre almost on the console.
Much, yeah.
Sports was like, I guess, NFL 2K, get some of that action going.
Right, yeah. That was when the 2K series started and was pretty successful in terms of competitors to EA stuff.
Oh, Visual Concept was rolling back then.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. And Dreamcast is crazy. We should, if anyone's not heard of Dreamcast, does anybody want to explain that real quick? Or
so yeah, it's basically how supposed to, it was an emulator disc to play PlayStation 1 games on the Dreamcast. And the beautiful thing about it was it actually upscaled the visuals, so it actually looked sharper than the original PlayStation.
Very strange, yeah.
The very, very original idea was that each disc would have like 100 games on it, but then they only released a handful of discs which only had one game compatibility on it. So you'd have to have a special disc that could run Metal Gear Solid and the Metal Gear Solid actual PlayStation 1 game. But the problem was Sony shut down the Dreamcast company down. So they only released like a few of those, which is really sad. It is possible to get some dodgy versions of the like ones with 100 games in it, but they don't all work. And yeah, there's ways around it. But yeah, it's a pretty cool idea. Just sadly, legality
super illegal.
Yeah,
think about the fact that these were essentially ROMs and emulators working through your Dreamcast. And those were somehow sold in retail stores at one point. Like you could essentially, it would.
The thing is, you had to have the actual original disc, like the PlayStation 1 disc, and put that in your Dreamcast.
Oh, that's right.
So there was no ROM. It was just like an emulator, which is basically what companies do now, like the Mega Drive Mini and the Super Nintendo Mini.
Yeah,
and
true.
In my I know why Sony did this just very quickly, but. In my head as a kid, I was like, but Sony would make more money because people would be buying more PlayStation 1 games for their Dreamcast, which probably wouldn't actually happen. But yeah, in my head, I was like, why is Sony doing this? Anyway.
It is the thing where it's like, we are selling this to you. What you do with it might be illegal, but we're not telling you to. We're just selling this to you.
Yeah.
Okay. I got one from Ichabod Brain I could read.
Oh, yes, please do.
What happened to your mic quality?
He says, I got and still have my...
Does it sound different to you, Graham?
You do sound a little
Your
bit
mic
tinny,
sounds different
actually.
to me.
Have you've moved your mic up?
Because I have a different mic that I've been using. I've been using my Snowball. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me just check it real quick.
You sounded fine earlier, but you've gone a bit tinny now. Like
Okay, how does that sound?
Oh,
Well,
way
that's
better.
much better.
Way better.
Really? Okay.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
that's better than you sounded before now. Like before you sounded different.
I think I had the wrong. It defaulted to the wrong input, so my bad on that.
So my audio is probably screwed up now. Anyway, so go with the Ichabod. Start with the Ichabod Brain Digger game.
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay. We got one from Ichabod Brain, and he says, "I got and still have my Dreamcast for my 13th birthday. It is still to this day my favorite console. I remember getting AOL and AT&T trial discs for online connectivity. I would use those trial discs to get online with my Dreamcast and play Phantasy Star Online. Not even version 2 yet. I'd spent so many hours just going through the through runs in the forest, caves, mines, and the ruins. It was a trip to meet up with people using the Dreamcast keyboard and take on Dark Falls. At this time, my brother and others were really into Diablo 2. It was cool, but didn't drag me in. Phantasy Star Online captivated me. The game was so ambient and stuffed with atmosphere. The ability to meet up with other hunters, do quests, explore extremely well-crafted levels that shuffled their layouts every time through was amazing. I remember finally being able to kill Gold Duval in the caves and getting access to the mines, seeing the robotic underground slowly reveal itself after an organic forest and caves was just a perfect succession of areas. Later in its life cycle, there was a lot of Game Shark hacking. I remember those days, where people would use an in-game character called Null, N-O-L, and overwrite your character with that Null character. That really sucked when it happened. Other players would use Megiddo to kill players while in Pioneer 2, which totally broke the game. Players that hacked would often give other weapons and items. I remember that I once received a Heaven's Punisher that when using it strong, attack summons beams down to all enemies selected. Sounds pretty awesome. Playing Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast from 2000 to 2001 was a magical experience, and I'm glad to have had that moment.
Yeah, that's
man, awesome. I remember when someone would come into your game and you realized that they were a hacker. You had to hurry up and pull your VMU out of the game, because if they would do something to hack it, if you could reach it before it saved to your VMU, it would just basically like disconnect you. And so if you could stop it from saving that like local file, then you could like stop the hacking. But
so would
I got hacked
just quick clarification question with that. When a new player would hop in, would it load and then auto save something? Is that what you're talking about?
It had to save something from the game, like some sort of online to your save that would screw it all up. Like it would basically, I think it corrupted your save file or something like that, didn't it, Graham?
There's something about that. Yeah, there were different types of hacking going on. There's like ones where people, if they joined your game, it could corrupt your save file and stuff. There are other ones where they could come in and it wouldn't corrupt your game, but they could then do stuff to you. Though they could kill you, or they could take your there was ways they could take your items and stuff. Like I think they could take your equipped weapon. Because that happened to me once. I had an equipped weapon, and then suddenly I didn't anymore. And I was like, it was a good weapon as well, because I got quite high in the game. I was like, where the fuck's that gone? So there's other things they could do. So yeah, if someone has hacked and came into your game, the best thing to do is put out your VMU, basically.
That's messed up.
Yeah, it's so annoying.
That's like on today's levels. You can get them now, but like there was a time where I forget the brand name, but there was a hack controller that you would essentially, if people would essentially buy controllers for Call of Duty, that you'd have the pistol, but instead of firing one round, it would turn into a semi-automatic gun. Essentially, you just hold down and go, just hold down the trigger. And we would get kids like rolling in asking like, "Do you sell these?" And I'm like, "No." And then if I ever got shit for it, I would be like, "Okay, look at it this way: you're essentially buying a hacked item that you can illegally use in the game, not illegally, but in terms of video game terminology, because people would get banned.
I'm sure it's against the terms of use for those games.
The agreement and stuff like that. Like usernames and systems would get banned from going online with your 360 as a result of this stuff. So this is like the early form of that garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really annoying.
We do have
That's
one more
crazy.
question from Imba the Crab. Does anyone want to read that one?
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to comment on real quick on the AOL discs because that's amazing. Using the old America Online CDs that you would get in the mail was probably the only great thing about getting stacks of those in your mailbox, is you could use them for free internet. Granted, that wouldn't prevent you from suddenly dropping from a game if mom or dad had to use the phone or somebody had to use the phone. But I just thought that's such a great timely comment that
I was using Net Zero back in the day, where you'd have you'd have to sit through ads and stuff to connect it. And
oh wow,
yeah.
Didn't they use Net Zero? They used something specific on.
Well, they had their own. They had SegaNet for a while. They ran their own ISP.
The wild west of the internet, people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to read the last one, Graham?
Sure, I don't mind. So this one's from Emmett the Crab. I was like 25 when it came out. I was hoping for a new Panzer Dragoon game, but I love PSO and Soul Calibur. A friend of mine kept telling me that the Dreamcast was going to be discontinued. And he said, in quotes, his friend said, they're including 10 games when you buy it. That's a bad sign. I didn't want to believe, and I argued with him.
And then you went to the store, right? Because holy crap.
That's an awesome deal.
Yeah. I do vaguely remember that, especially in America, they were giving away tons of games with the Dreamcast when the time discontinued. It's sad. But we're actually going to talk a little bit about the Dreamcast game discontinued and our thoughts and stuff on it a bit later in the show. So is there anything else you guys want to add to those at all? Or
that he wasn't alone in hoping for a new Panzer Dragoon game.
Mm-hmm.
And Soul Calibur is great and a strong launch title. We'll talk about that a little more. I want to say overall that all these comments, quick overall comment is I am kind of sad I missed out on Phantasy Star Online when it started, like that experience. I missed out on that.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, Graham and I, we played it a ton back in the day together. That's like
awesome.
One of our jams. We would play it at least 3 to 4 times a week, like online, for at least like a couple hours at a go. Like we played a lot.
It's great.
We had a lot of fun.
I played Blue Burst recently with Anti-Chris on Thursday night stuff on the stream. It's cool. It is bare bones, and it is, unless you were a fan of it back in the day, I guess, I thought it was pretty boring. But then he's like, this is MMOs, man. MMOs are something you just turn your brain off with, and it's basically an interactive chat room. Like
it's not gonna. It's an MMO that has to be able to run on a narrowband modem.
Right.
You know, like when we're talking about, you know, like because Blue Burst was on PC, right? So, but I'm just kind of referring to the PSO, the OG one. So these games are fairly simple. You know, there's not a ton of stuff going on, and I still think though it's just amazing that they were able to even get that game running on the Dreamcast and being online.
So Fred Durst could kick your ass.
Right. No, that was great. Lots of good stuff from the community. So thank you guys for sharing. It's always good to hear and just share stories like that. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we can pack it up. I'll put away my Dreamcast. For those that are seeing it visually, you can see my Quake 3 Arena sticker. This is a launch console, and that sticker was stupidly put on by young Scotty Moe when he got it from his magazine. He was really excited to have a sticker for his console. So,
it's so bad.
I can't do this looking in my reflection. Pack it on up and secure this bad boy. Pretend it's secure. I'm not doing that.
We mentioned last week that we weren't really going to be doing news stuff because we're in the show because we're going to start doing news in a different way. We haven't actually launched that sort of way yet, but a bit of news came out which relates to what we talked about last week and also ties in with the Dreamcast. So we're going to talk about it. Scotty, do you want to talk about the news?
Yeah, sure. I posted this on the site only because Marcin wasn't available. Our registered Shenmue nut. But no, so what happened during Crunchyroll had the virtual Crunchyroll Expo, and they announced a Shenmue anime series coming coming out. 13 episodes. Very little is known on it, other than it'll be a collaboration between Crunchyroll and Adult Swim. Yu Suzuki is actually serving as the executive producer, and the director of this was the director of One Punch Man Season 2 and Majimoji Rurubo. Sorry.
Nailed it.
Yep, perfect. First try. I don't know that one, but One Punch Man I do know. But all they've said is it's going to basically be a retelling of the video game stories, and which I think is cool. But they have not said how far in it'll go or how if it's going to complete the epic tale or not yet. So I don't think there's a date or anything. Otherwise, there's very little information. So it's literally, they said 13 episodes. They do have a cool piece of art for it. It's called Shenmue the Animation. So
I'll say this, like, I would like it. I think it would be fun just for it to be cover the first 2 games, like the first season. Like I would rather, because I think it would be more fun to go back and relive those memories that you played those like first games, but in like a new animated form. I think it would be really cool just to see all the different scenes with like Ryu. Like, you know, a lot of the fights could be more fleshed out. I think it would be really neat to go back and just kind of show the first, you know, kind of original story, or as the story began in the Dreamcast games. Start with that.
I'd like to see these 13 episodes just do the first game, and hopefully have a second season of 13 episodes for the second game, and then another one for the third game. Because I reckon 13 episodes would be great to actually tell the story, have the action scenes and stuff in. I feel like if they've got 2 or 3 of the games, like story length in there, it's not going to be enough episodes really. So then you've got like, what, 3, maybe 4 episodes per game? That doesn't really work for me, I don't think, unless the episodes are an hour long or something. But I imagine they're going to be like 20 minutes long or something, because it's
Yeah.
You could do that in Shenmue 3 because like the first half of the game, you're not even really doing anything.
Fair enough. I guess at the end of episode Shenmue 2 as well, there's not much going on either. But you know, yeah. One thing I love about this news is, because if you're not a regular listener or watcher of the show, last week we're actually talking about this news because something was hinted and teased at. Oh, Scotty was going to say something.
I called this.
Yes.
I called this last episode, but I called this years ago when I was talking to my buddies Josh and John about this. I'm like, this was probably like 2008 or something. And I was like, just finish it in an anime. It wouldn't be the same thing as the games. It wouldn't capture the atmosphere as well. Just finish it in an anime. Freaking check the timestamp, people. I call this.
Yeah, but it's so good because last week we were talking about this. We were talking about different ideas, like a comic book form, and Scotty said an anime or something. But
Crazy.
Also, one of you mentioned about it being about like in a similar style to One Punch Man or something around One Punch Man, and here we go. The people involved in One Punch Man is in it. So this is great. I love it.
It's crazy.
Great. Yeah. And I really hope we get to see him riding the bus, as you said, like just standing on the bus like a psycho.
Yeah.
And also just responding awkwardly to questions like, okay. And then just turning around and walking off.
Yeah. There, something that captures Shenmue, I'm not going to say perfectly, but really well, is one of the website Giant Bomb. A fan always puts together best of from their streams and gameplay videos and stuff like that. Find the one that is I don't remember what it's titled. I'll find it and throw it in the podcast info. But it's them playing Shenmue 3, and there are parts where like Ryu's talking to an old lady, and he's like, "Have you seen anyone wearing a blue shirt?" And the old lady like awkwardly looks up at him and says, "Red skirts? No." and there's another part where he's standing like 10 feet from that large gentleman that is teaching kids kung fu or something. He's like far away from him and like showing him a piece of paper, like asking if he's seen whatever looks like this. Is like, dude, he cannot see that, but that's Shenmue. And it's just, so I think I do want to comment on your idea of it being each game, each season, Graham. Mm-hmm. I don't want to crush your dreams, but I could see them guaranteeing to not do that because that's what Suzuki wanted to do with the games, and it's taken this long just to get to the third game. You know what I mean? So I feel that this might be a way for them to condense the story and do it a couple episodes at a time for each game. But I think the main thing we have to keep in mind, the majority of the Shenmue games and Shenmue experience is doing nothing. So I think the anime is going to kind of bypass that a little bit, because you're not going to have Ryo. You're like the anime is not going to go into a first person view. Or if it was only looking at Ryo and the things he does, then it would be a lot of just Ryo staring at walls and trying to read store signs and like looking at fish on a platter. It could be a great comedy, like
where someone just played the game and just like voiced everything.
Yeah, it's just.
But I think what I'm saying overall is like, I'm sorry, I'll say my last thing and then I'll be done with Shenmue. But like, I think this is the way to get more of the story out there to a wider audience, because those games are not, they're so hard to introduce to people and convince that they're good, because they are good for a group that is diehard, and they are good in terms of what they what they set for open world games. But there's like 5 different fan bases of Shenmue. Like there's the people that respect it, the people that love it, the people that are like, what's wrong with you? Why do you like this game? So I think this is a good way to squeeze it all together. But also, I kind of hope that they don't finish the story with this anime, because then at that point, what's the point of having more games, which is what people want out of Shenmue.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
Yep.
What were you going to say, Graham? I interrupted you.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, my issue with it, if they were to like try and do all the games in like one season, is that yes, a lot of the games is just walking around like doing nothing, essentially, just like walking around talking to people. But
which is what I love about it.
But that's kind of part of what, especially in the first game, Ryo is trying to solve like a mystery of who these mysterious people are who just came to this house and stuff. So I feel like there needs to be that story of development. And for Xbox players, the original Xbox players who got Shenmue 2, they actually had the Shenmue movie disc with the game.
Right.
So it kind of retold the original game. And that was like a proper full-length movie. But that was still condensing down to all the main parts of the story, and was also the exciting action bits. So I think it's totally possible to do it and keep it interesting. But I guess we'll see what happens. Let's watch this space and see where they actually go with this, because that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I will say also one thing I'm legitimately excited for. The second game is really revolves around fights, and I'm very excited to see how, because anime is anime, I'm very excited to see how they portray those fights and make them so much more action oriented than QuickTime events. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that'll be cool to see.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. So let's wrap that bit of news up for now, and we'll watch this space and see what happens. We'll try and get back to you if we hear anything more. But yeah, awesome. And with that, we'll go for a quick break and be right back after this. And we're now moving on to a section talking about how the Dreamcast changed gaming. So one of the reasons why Dreamcast fans love the Dreamcast is because, let's face it, it's pretty much ahead of its time. It had some great games on it, but it also did so many things that just didn't happen before, really. So there's the obvious one, which is they had a built-in modem when it first came out, so it allowed for full online browsing, allowed for online gaming out of the box, which was like a massive achievement. And this is at a time when the internet was still quite young, so only PCs could really do it. And then the Dreamcast came out, and it's like, oh my god, it pretty much changed gaming completely. And as you see, for viewers, Scotty is showing off the internet modem on the side of the Dreamcast, which you can take out, which is brilliant. But it did some other great things that some of these things aren't really spoken about so much. So I'm just going to read out a few of them basically right now. There's one thing this was actually only in Europe only, which is Planet Ring. I don't know if you guys know much about this, but it is essentially an online gaming community. And for PlayStation 3 fans, if you remember PS Home, this was kind of like a mini version of PS Home about 8 years before PS Home even existed. So online gaming community, people could go online together. They could actually play real games in real time together, like these mini games. There had about 4 or 5 mini games on there. It also had access to the Dreamcast microphone, so you could actually verbally communicate with people, which is amazing. And this is also 3 years before Second Life, which was like, as some of you might know, is a massive PC online gaming community, effectively. So Planet Ring was a bit of a smaller affair, but it's incredible what they did at the time. Sadly, it was only out for a little bit, and it was Europe only, but it was such a cool idea, and Yeah, really good. And Scotty is showing off the Dreamcast microphone right there. There was also, and this was actually Japan only, there's something called the Dream Library, which I actually only found out a little while ago about this. So this was effectively the Dreamcast virtual console years before the Wii came out. There were actually some sort of services like back in the day, like they had the Sega channel. Atari 2600 had something called Game Line, where you could essentially download, digitally acquire games for those consoles. But this was a bit different. This allowed you to play Mega Drive and NEC PC Engine games. So it was effectively, it was a bit more like the virtual console in that you were playing games not designed for the console you're playing on to be downloaded to your console. So that is emulating games, basically. It's legal, completely legal. So it was an amazing thing. But basically, rather than the virtual console where you buy games, you actually rented games from a period of between 2 to 7 days. Sadly, as I say, it's Japan only. But I mean, if the Dream Library was out in America or Europe, I think that would have been a massive thing. Problems with it, though, were technologically, it was, Dreamcast downloads, the internet speed wasn't the best. VMU size was very small, so it's actually stored on the Dreamcast RAM. So if you turned off your Dreamcast, you then had to re-download it again. So it wasn't the smoothest service in the world, but it was the first. It was amazing. Such a cool idea. As sort of mentioned, voice chat and internet calls, that wasn't really done. Well, that wasn't done on consoles before this. So as mentioned, Planet Ring, Alien Front Online. Those are 2 games that supported online voice chat, complete industry first. Dreamcast also had something called Sega's Dream Call, and which is basically a Skype or Zoom-like service. It was launched 3 years before Skype, which enabled Dreamcast users to make phone calls over the internet. So again, a massive idea. And also, I feel like this is a critical one, DLC, downloadable content. So a lot of what people consider to be a DLC on the Dreamcast actually isn't DLC. So when you talk about Sonic Adventure with the Christmas stuff and the Christmas DLC or those other things, that was actually content that was locked to a disc. And what you were doing was downloading a little file which then unlocked it on your disc. So that was pre-planned content. However, the Dreamcast did actually have DLC. You had ghost saves for certain games, especially racing games. So that was content that could not be pre-planned. I'd race on a game like Metropolis Street Racer, for example, upload my ghost data. Scotty, you could then go and download it and race against me. So that was DLC. The limitations of the Dreamcast VMU and sort of storage for that meant that that's the only way they could really do it. But they were adopting DLC. They had future plans to have better, bigger memory as well, so you could download proper DLC for other games, but that never really came to fruition. But yeah, that's a huge thing that people don't really consider. DLC kind of really actually started on the Dreamcast. And one other last one I want to mention very quickly is 60 hertz compatibility worldwide. Now, for most Americans and also people in Japan or Asia, you probably wouldn't have even considered this to be a thing. It's not an issue for you at all. But essentially, in European countries, PAL region, TVs back in the day used to be 50 hertz, which initially was because it actually gave a better picture quality. So for TVs and shows and movies and stuff, technically we had a better picture quality, but 60 hertz had a faster frame rate, a refresh rate for the TV. And for early video games, didn't really matter. Is when faster games like Sonic the Hedgehog came out that we really started to notice that we had a downside to our gaming, for example. So Sonic the Hedgehog would actually run faster on the Sega Genesis and the Japanese Mega Drive. In Europe, our Mega Drive, Sonic and Sonic 2 and stuff noticeably was a little bit slower. Like for us, it was kind of fine, but when we started to branch out and see these other, what's happening in America and Japan, it's like, oh, wait a second. And the thing is, TVs in Europe were starting to support 60 hertz long before the Dreamcast came out. The console manufacturers like Nintendo from the N64, Sony for the PlayStation stuff, they didn't actually ever have any games that worked could do 60 hertz for PAL region. They always stuck to the 50 hertz. Dreamcast was the first one. Actually, so if you actually buy a lot of European games, when you start the game, it will say, would you like to play in 50 hertz or 60 hertz? Oh, and you could test your TV to see if it would support 60 hertz. And if it did, brilliant. You got to play basically the American version. So you got to play Sonic Adventure at its proper speed. effectively. It was massively, basically, it was a massive thing.
I've encountered that for Dreamcast indie games that I buy now.
Mhm.
They have that option at the beginning. And the only other comment I have on all of that is blast processing.
Yeah, brilliant. So, yeah, that's one of those things that people don't really realize. That was a thing that, back in the day, but all modern HD TVs do 60 hertz as standard. So your newer consoles, your Xboxes and stuff, you don't have that option anymore because it's just not a thing anymore. Back in the day, it was a massive thing. So yeah, that's just a few things that I wanted to talk about with passion. That some of the reasons why I love the Dreamcast and why it's so forward thinking for its time. So I'm going to hand it to you guys. Have you guys got any other thoughts? Any other things you want to talk about there? Really?
I'll let Sadie go first this time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the first I've heard of the Dream Library right now in real time.
There you go.
That's fucking nuts. That's
I know.
insane. Just that all of this stuff. And it reminds me of an earlier thing I read about Planet Ring before I was part of Megavision's staff. And when the magazine was only digital, Graham talked about Planet Ring. You can actually play that now with the Dreamcast Live community.
I'm going to do it.
But yeah, and you have on here, I don't know that you mentioned one of your bullet points here that it was 3 years before Second Life. Second Life is still popular, but that thing is insane. If the Dreamcast kicked that off earlier than that somehow, basically what I keep thinking is if any of these ideas succeeded in the realm of possibility, like other programs are with how these things are, that was somehow a sentence. But it's just all nuts, and it's just going to be me forever saying that Sega was ahead of their time, even with the frickin' Genesis and stuff. It's nuts. But this also lends to like how much money they were spreading themselves so far thin with all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of the.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the PS2, everybody, that killed Sega, whatever. This is one of the many factors. Pros and cons. It's some of the great and horrible things, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I always go back to is I see all this potential, and I see all the things that the Sega was doing with the Dreamcast and everything, and it makes me sad because it didn't get its full life cycle like so many other.
Not at all.
It basically got a couple years, and then it got the plug pulled from it, and so I always think about like what would have the Dreamcast would have done had it had a full life cycle, and
I just thought of something.
I would, I know that I remember reading in magazines back in the day that Sega had started talking about essentially updating the Dreamcast hardware. So it's kind of like what, manufacturers do today. And it's, like what probably Nintendo is going to be doing in a few years with the Switch. They're going to release like some new iteration of it with better, internals. So maybe have like a faster processor, may have a bigger hard drive, things like that. Sega was talking about doing this with the Dreamcast like back in the day. And the way it was explained, at least how I remember it, is that you would send in your Dreamcast somewhere and then they would go in and update it, put in new stuff, send it back to you, and then you'd have like an updated Dreamcast. So the idea was that the Dreamcast's hardware capability would continue to improve over the life cycle of the system. So you'd be able to continue to get better games. And so there's potential, if that would have happened, like Dreamcast games would have looked much higher quality than PS2 even if that would have actually happened. And I think that possibility is so cool. And I love to think about that.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's really nuts. I do have one more thing that I thought about. As you were mentioning that stuff, Chris, my friends in high school were super duper into EverQuest Online on the PS2.
Oh, I played that a lot too. I played that a lot.
But the reason I bring that up is the Dreamcast had a modem. The PS2, you could eventually get I think it was a hard drive and a modem or something like that expansion.
I don't think it required the modem, but a lot of games required both of them to be in there.
Right. Okay.
Or I'm sorry, the hard drive. I'm sorry, you didn't have to have a hard drive connected to it to put it in and hook it up.
Oh, okay.
But required both peripherals.
Yeah, the PS2 had this giant box that you would put onto the back of your console to play things online, essentially. But I remember I didn't really care that they were playing EverQuest because that was this time in my life where I was introduced to music and I was starting drum lessons and stuff like that. So I kind of just let that go. And I didn't care as much until World of Warcraft hit and essentially robbed my friends from my life. And but what I'm leading up to is it was so bad with WoW and them that at one point we were sitting down to dinner, like our group of friends, and they start talking about WoW, and I literally whipped out my Game Boy Advance SP, and one of them was like, Scott, what have you been doing? Because everything was World of Warcraft. I did not have anything to do with the conversations ever, so I just like didn't want to hang out with them. And it was bad, and there's not bad blood. I still talk to them and stuff, but that goes back to, what if they got into play Phantasy Star Online instead of EverQuest 2? Like, what if they got into another Dreamcast game online? What if they just did that instead of PS2? Like, that blows my mind to think that someone else besides one other guy in my friend group, shout out to Ben, would have been into the Dreamcast and had a Dreamcast. And like, it's all, this whole section is a big what if, but like, think about that. Like, what if Phantasy Star took off like EverQuest and then invaded World of Warcraft's atmosphere or ecosystem and stuff like that? Like, it's just crazy to think about that.
I will quickly say before we move on that there were several new like peripherals and other little cool features that Sega had planned, and it showed off in some capacity. I think a lot of it were like Tokyo Game Show type things like that, mainly centered in Japan. But a lot of people will remember the VMU MP3 that looked totally awesome. I really wish that thing would have came out.
Man.
There was the zip drive, which everyone remembers. I think that they should have just went straight into like some sort of other expandable memory, like maybe just hard drives or something like that. Like looking at that, maybe even having something that the Dreamcast could like dock to, almost kind of like the karaoke machine for the Dreamcast. But it would dock into it, and that in and of itself would be like a giant hard drive that the Dreamcast would sit on, but it would be connected to some sort of port on there. Because I think that would make more sense than a zip drive. But anyway, Sega was looking at doing that, which would have had a, that would have opened up the possibility for real DLC, more saves, stuff like that. And so you'd really expand what you could do with the Dreamcast Online with this zip drive peripheral. There's also the Swatch access, which I think, Graham, you probably know more about that than I do.
Yeah, so this when I found out about this kind of blew my mind. Basically, Sega was working with Swatch, the Swiss watch company, to release this watch called the Swatch Access. And what it was a watch which had internet functions. So basically for the Dreamcast, you had this like thing that you'd attach to your controller, which is like a big round disc thing, and you could sync up your watch to this disc thing, which was connected to the internet. And the idea was that you could put your calendar on there, but also it would like bring up, you could get cinema times, restaurants, contact details, and menus and stuff like that. So which to us these days, with your phone in your pocket, that's nothing. Back then, yes, the internet existed, but you couldn't really find you could just about find cinema times maybe, but like what restaurants and stuff. And you could get that was the other thing. You could get table bookings for restaurants and do it through your watch and stuff. It's a great idea. Just sadly, it never fully came to fruition. The Swatch Access was released in Japan, but they actually didn't have all the functions they were originally planning. But there was a whole press event with Sega and Swatch together, like talking about all these awesome features and stuff. They revealed an early version, a prototype version of the watch, and everything. They were showing off what it could do. They had early prototypes of all the functionality, but around this is around the time towards the end of the lifespan, Sega decided to discontinue the Dreamcast, and sadly, it didn't fully come to fruition. But it was almost basically a smartwatch before years before like the Apple Watch and stuff came out. It's insane what they were thinking of, and it'd have been we actually think it'd be a really cool idea. If it did come out, it's so cool. So that's one thing that gets me really excited, is that idea.
I feel like the Dreamcast, there were typing, there were word processing things for consoles before this and stuff, but I feel like the Dreamcast was the first console that had the intent of being more of a media box than just a video game console. Aside from not having what's it called, DVD. And I think what Chris was saying about add-on memory. It's weird that they had that with the Saturn, but then took it out for the Dreamcast. But then I do remember reading, it might have been in Console Wars, that was essentially, what can we remove? What's more important? Yeah, let's put a modem in this thing instead of a hard drive. So that makes sense when you think about it like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's ahead of its time. There's so many things
ahead of its time. Yeah.
Chris?
I just said they should have put a DVD player in it, but
it would have helped.
The cost of them having a DVD, because Sony was in the DVD industry, it's cheaper for them. I think there's reasons it would cost a lot for them to put it in compared to Sony's doing it for the. Anyway, but as we say, let's wrap up this bit. It's it just goes to show. Just wanted to touch on like how advanced it was and some of the cool ideas they were going to have for the Dreamcast. But yeah, so with that, let's move on to our next bit. We're going to go down a little bit now. We've talked about how amazing it was at the time, but our reactions for when Sega cancelled the Dreamcast. So, as we all know, the Dreamcast was sadly cancelled. I think it was in 2001. It was actually officially announced by Sega that they were cancelling the Dreamcast. I did actually have the date up on my screen earlier, and now I've just lost it. But yeah, they came out and they said it's going to be cancelled. What were you guys' thoughts? So, Chris, what was your reaction? What did you think? Yeah.
Well, obviously, I was really upset. I can't remember how I found out about it. It must have been, Sega. It must have been after Sega issued the press release, and then sites just started covering, like IGN and stuff like that. Probably came out with the news. But I got so angry. I got so mad that I was like, you know what? I'm going right now, and I'm taking all of my Dreamcast stuff to GameStop. I traded it all in, and I already had a PS2 at the time, and I think I just bought a bunch of PS2 games with it. I was so mad. I was just like, I'm done.
Wow.
Like, I can't believe Sega's doing this. Like, I'm just completely done with it. Like, I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. Of course, I regret that years later. I wish I would have kept all that stuff, especially for like PS2 games. But I just, man, I didn't know what to do, because I'm sitting here, I was running a Dreamcast fan site, Dreamcasters Realm. Graham and I were working on it together. Yeah. And then now all of a sudden, like, I find out that, okay, well, Sega's going away from this. And now, like, what am I even supposed to do with this website anymore? And so I think that's really what got Graham and I talking about, like, okay, well, we're going to have to come up with another idea, because there's not going to be any more Dreamcast games, so we just can't just cover Dreamcast. So maybe we'll just cover everything Sega, and we came up with the name Sega Nerds, and that's basically how Sega Nerds came about, is because of this whole event. And so I guess I was pissed off at first, but some really good stuff came out of it for us personally, I guess, on the website and everything. But yeah, man, that was rough times in the old PAL household.
I think Sega Nerds was the silver lining in the Dreamcast discontinuation, but I think a lot of fans out there would probably rather have the Dreamcast be successful. Yeah.
I'll tell you that I would choose to have the Dreamcast continue over any of our things that we've done.
Oh yeah, Scotty, like, what were you feeling at the time?
I don't remember even being fazed by it. I know this is going to surprise some people, but I don't even remember reading about the announcement or anything. I think this was, again, my life was kind of easing. My life was kind of easing out of video games and more into music and learning instruments. So it wasn't a huge factor to me, which is weird to hear me say. But I remember hearing along with that Sega was going to go third party, and certain series were going to go to certain consoles. So all I heard in my dumb high school mind was Nintendo's console is going to get Sonic. And it was also announced that Nintendo's console is going to get the canon Resident Evil games. So the next numeric Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 4, will be on GameCube and nowhere else. Well, yeah, that's the biggest lie Capcom ever told, as we see now in today's age. But and then also Smash Brothers was going to the next Nintendo console. So in my head, I was like, well, duh, Sega's not dead. I need my Sonic game, so I'll just go to GameCube. And like the other things didn't interest me for some reason in my mind. Oh, this was also when I think I was angrier. I think I was angrier about Microsoft saying that they're doing a console because I was like, yeah, I don't know. I was more PO'd that like Microsoft is entering the console wars. I don't want Microsoft making a system. I remember being upset about that and thinking like, I'll go to Nintendo because they got Sonic and they got other stuff they've announced that Sega will be helping them out with. And so it was weird because I was just at a different point in my life that games weren't as important. And instead I was into music. So I do remember my buddy who I convinced into getting a Dreamcast was upset with me. I was like, I'm sorry, dude. Doesn't mean it's a bad console, but I didn't tell you it'd last forever. But it's crazy and weird. And I don't know. I think it honestly makes it more powerful in the fan community than had it lasted longer. But it was not as dark times for me as a Sega fan, I guess, as some people would be led to believe.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. I think for me, the one word that comes into my head is gutted. I was just like at school. Back in the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo days, I had friends who had Super Nintendos. I had a Mega Drive, but we never had a console war, even though that was known as the console war era. For me, the console war started with the Dreamcast and the PlayStation too. Like at school, we had a few people who had Dreamcasts. Had some people who had PlayStation 2s, but yeah, it's just always that argument of like, oh, PlayStation 2 sucks, no, Dreamcast sucks, sort of thing. And then the day it was announced that Sega was stopping the Dreamcast and putting out, I was just so gutted because basically the PlayStation fans had won. Because like the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, like they sort of came to their final conclusion. You know, the consoles they got to the end of the era. You could argue one sold more than the other, but it felt like there was no winner as such. You know, there was no like, I'm taking you down. Whereas this era was just like, man. So I was like proper bummed. I think I even like wrote on I even wrote it on Sega forums, like some sort of angry, like, oh, screw you guys. Like, why have you done this? Like this, you could do so much better. Journal. Like, you know, like just an angry fanboy rant.
If you could find those old posts, that would be
I'll try. Yeah, there's just some stupid fanboy rant going, oh, you could have done this or you could have done that. You know, me knowing, you know, having a multi-million-dollar business, how that would work. You know.
That's everyone on. You hear that's everybody on Twitter. They all have their own businesses and make everything they complain about, so they totally understand it.
Exactly, yeah. And so I was ahead of the game, really, for that. I was Twitter before Twitter existed. Now, I think a lot of fans must have done this at the time, and I think Sega must have got fed up, you know, angry emails or letters or, you know, social posts going in, forum posts going in.
Social media wasn't where it is now at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I was gutted, and for that reason, I did not get a PlayStation 2 either. So I actually opted for... No, I actually held off. I almost did I did something similar to Chris, but I did almost the opposite. I kept my Dreamcast and I was like, I'm not buying any more consoles. This is my last console. That's it.
Video games are over.
Basically, it was effectively that. And then eventually my friend convinced me to get a GameCube, and I bought a few games for that. And then I played Halo at my friend's house on the Xbox. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best first-person shooter I've ever played in my life.
I've never had this feeling in my pants.
That was probably the day. And then I saw that they had Panzer Dragoon Auto on there, and they had some other great Sega games. And I was just like, oh man, like Headhunter 2 was on there. I was like, what am I doing? I need to get an Xbox. So yeah, I got an Xbox for those reasons. I got a GameCube similar for you. Like I saw there's some good games, but I also saw there's Sega games on there. So I was like, this is cool. I'm happy with this. Weirdly though, on the GameCube, I only got a couple of Sega games on there. But yeah, that was it. I was just gutted. I was so unhappy. I don't think I cried. I didn't cry or anything. It wasn't that extreme, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's just one of those days. It's just like, shit, you know, Sony has won, basically. And it's just man. But, yeah, and I feel like a lot of people might have experienced something similar to this, but yeah. Do you guys have any other final thoughts?
I don't want to make light of it. but it was not as directly affecting my life as video games
Totally.
might have another time, or even more so now. So
Mm.
it's crazy, but also at the same time, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Just where things were and everything. And I'm gonna say it every freaking podcast, I guess. Read Console Wars, and you'll understand how they got to that point, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's kind of a phenomenon that the Dreamcast even happened, to be honest, just based on where they were going into that. So,
Mm.
it's crazy. It's so nuts. What's even crazier, and everyone should watch the movie Josie and the Pussycats. The Dreamcast and Sega is all over that movie, and it's weird
Really?
to think that Sega thought at one point it's stronger than ever. Yeah, but that movie also plays on like corporate Big Brother and sponsorships and stuff like Josie and the
Well,
Pussycats
they
is kind
also
of just an awesome
sponsored
movie in general.
House of the Dead. Remember that Uwe Boll movie?
No, I forgot about that. Tell me about. I've never heard about that one, Chris.
Oh.
What's that?
I got a YouTube link I can send you later.
Oh, good. Famous last words. I think if anything, it made the Sega fan base stronger. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I can agree with that. Yeah, especially the Dreamcast fan base. I think it did. Yeah, I think you touched on it. It wouldn't have been the same had it continued on for a few more years or what have you. Yeah.
It's just nuts. It's so crazy to think about all the what ifs, and it really was so short lived. And unfortunately, that's why it's hard to collect the physical games as well, because the tail end releases are so stupid expensive. But hey.
So we're moving on to our next section, which is actually the current state of Dreamcast. So even though Sega discontinued, actually I had the date. It's January the 31st, 2001. That's when the Dreamcast was officially announced as being discontinued. Even though Sega announced that and, official games slowly started to wind down, it wasn't until, I think it's actually 2007 that Sega Japan, it wasn't Sega Japan, but the last official Dreamcast release was actually released in Japan.
Right.
But since the Dreamcast, folded, production was stopped, things have been going strong for the Dreamcast. It's a bit crazy, really. Yes, it's not quite the same level as, modern consoles or, if a console was still being officially developed and produced by a company, but stuff has been happening. And in recent years, the Dreamcast has come back online again. There's lots of games you can play online still. So you've got like the big ones like Quake 3, Phantasy Star Online, Toy Racer, if you're into that. There's actually quite a lot of the original Dreamcast online games actually back online, thanks to the Dream Pie, which is amazing. We actually did an interview with the Dream Pie creators back in the magazine a few issues ago. And if you go to dreamcasttalk.net, you can find out so much more about the online stuff for the Dreamcast at the moment. They are always doing sort of hosted events and stuff for the different online games. You can actually order a Dream Pie through there. So, the Dream Pie is a Raspberry Pi, effectively, which has been modded and put I guess software and firmware into it, which actually talks to the Dreamcast to get it back online through your broadband modem. So through you can do it through wireless, you can do it through wired connection. You can get online just using your current router. You don't have to use dial-up anymore, which is great. You still only get the dial-up speeds technically, because that's what the Dreamcast is capable of doing. That's what it plugs into its modem, built-in modem still. So still what's capable of doing, but that's what you do. And aside from the Dreamcast being online, there's been loads of indie games and Kickstarters that have come out. Especially in recent times, there's been a few Kickstarter games. But since the Dreamcast was cancelled in 2001, approximately 70 homebrew or indie titles have been launched and sold on the system. So those are games that you can, sort of indie developers have been creating and been selling online. So you can get from various online retailers and stuff. Scotty's showing off a few of them there.
These are awesome. All indie games.
Yep.
These are all indie games. Look at that stack.
I should have got my stack out as well, actually, but I've got a stack of them back there as well. There's been countless actual indie titles and mods for games that have been released for free over the years. You guys can get like games like PC ports like Quake and stuff was released for free that people worked on, which is awesome. There's about another 11 homebrew releases on their way that we know of. Chris is going to talk, I think, a little bit about some of them as well. And also just for continuing Dreamcast coverage. Check out our friends at the Dreamcast Junkyard. They've always got excellent coverage of all things Dreamcast. They are brilliant. They're always hot on the pulse of Dreamcast news and stuff. I learned quite a lot of stuff from them. So keep up the excellent work, guys. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Radio Sega for pumping out the Sega tunes all the time, keeping the music alive. They do Sega from all generations, but if you like to hear those Jet Set Radio, Jet Grind Radio tunes and stuff from the Dreamcast era, they're always doing those as well. So it's awesome. I think the state of the Dreamcast right now is fantastic, but I will stop talking and pass over to you guys. Let's hear your thoughts on what's happening with the state of Dreamcast now.
I'll just say really quickly, I can go down some of the list of games that are actually going to be coming out this year, 2020, for indie games. And I'll see if you guys have any thoughts on those. Actually, there's a couple of games on here, or there's one game on here that actually did come out this year. So this is kind of like the major Dreamcast releases of 2020. The first one would be Xenocrisis, which came out. When did this actually come out, Scotty? Because I think, did it get a release late last year? It may have released like late in the year on like Steam and
I can let you
Genesis.
know.
I think that was like.
I'm looking up my review essentially because I released it. I did that release week.
And then the Dreamcast version just came out like recently.
Right.
It just released. So I know the game had been done probably sometime in late 2019, but didn't actually get.
I reviewed my review for it was December 12th of 2019, so it came out late 2019.
Okay. Wow, I'm actually right for once. So that was actually a pretty good game. Like I was genuinely impressed with that. I think it looks great. The Dreamcast version is really, really nice. I will say that's one of those games, man. I really wish they had another analog stick on that controller.
Yeah, it's I'll mention it here, but it's on the schedule for the marathon. We will be playing that.
Sweet.
Excellent.
Awesome. Definitely tune in for that, Dreamcast fans. So some of the other games that are coming out is Slave. Have you guys seen that? It's kind of like a 3D puzzle style game. That looks really good.
Very briefly, but I do remember the name.
Yeah.
Is it a first-person game? Am I correct in thinking that? It's a first-person sort of puzzle shooter style game. Is that right?
I don't know if it's a shooter.
I think it is first-person, though.
Yeah. Okay. In my head, it was... first-person then. Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Then we also have Xenocider, which is like an on-rails shooter, kind of like a...
I'm sorry.
What?
I just pictured a bunch of xenomorphs sipping cider at a table or something.
What? Why?
Xenocider.
The aliens, and then drinking Graham's cider, maybe, or something. Just talking about, man, what a day at work, huh? My dogs.
I thought I mispronounced something when you guys started laughing.
No. This is my fan fiction.
This one looks really good, actually. Like Graham was saying, Dreamcast Junkyard has done a lot of good coverage on this game. I'm looking forward to this. Probably, I mean, outside of Xenocrisis, Xenocider might be the one of the games that I'm looking forward to most out of this list. To round it out, we also have Intrepid Izzy, which we featured a preview of Intrepid Izzy in our 0 issue. Megavisions. I think we only printed like 30 of those. They're out there somewhere. Those copies get out.
I love the way Chris just looked around. They're out there.
Listeners, Chris just looked at his ceiling.
I was looking to see if I actually have any on my shelf. I was looking around, see do I have any here? I have copies of issue 8, but
that's what I've gotten.
I think Intrepid Izzy has been released on Steam and stuff, but the Dreamcast version is still on its way. But yeah, they did release a demo version, which, as you say, we actually got to play and we reviewed and stuff. I actually got to play it, and I thought it was a great game. This is the game I'm looking forward to the most. I'm really excited for this game.
From what I understand with that in terms of production, they're releasing patches and listening to feedback before they release the final version on Dreamcast. So that's why
I guess that makes sense.
So,
And that's a Senile team who's behind Intrepid. You can actually get it on Steam for $19 right now.
Oh, awesome.
there you go.
Perfect.
So, Graham, are you going to get it?
Well, I've already got the Dreamcast version ordered because I actually did the Kickstarter for it.
Right,
but I may as well put some money down for Steam and get the Steam version as well. Why not? Let's do it.
It can't be a
It
podcast
wouldn't-
if you're not buying something, Graham. So
That's true.
That's what I was gonna
Okay,
say.
I've actually got Steam closed, so I don't slow the internet down. But I will do that after.
Yeah,
the
maybe
show.
don't open that right now.
Graham is actually using the Dream Eye to do this recording, and he's using his Dreamcast to stream. So he
Yeah.
cannot open any other programs or applications, or else the whole
And
internet.
each of the controllers he mentioned have a microphone plugged into them, so he looks like he's in the middle of Death Stranding's mocap thing. essentially.
And the last big release for the year is Arcade Racing Legends. Have you guys seen this?
I've also
I'm
backed
very
that on
excited for that.
Kickstarter as well. Yeah.
So what's going on with this game, Graham? Tell us about it.
Oh, I haven't really been checking the actual updates for it, but it seems like it's been in production for a couple of years now. But it's a 3D racing game, and one of the cool things about it is they've actually got inspiration from other Sega games and stuff. There's a few cars that are very similar to ones from Sega games, but they're also got, through the Kickstarter and stuff, they've actually got other companies to sponsor certain cars and stuff. Actually, we were looking at doing a Megavisions one, but I couldn't actually afford it at the time, which is really annoying.
Yeah, because it was like $1,000 or something.
It's pretty expensive. It's pretty expensive to actually sponsor. You can get sponsored tracks as well. You can sponsor cars. But it looks really good. So it's a full 3D racing game. It looks a lot of fun, like an arcade style racing game. It's the visuals on it look pretty damn decent especially for an indie Dreamcast game. So this is probably the second game I'm looking most forward to.
I'd say it looks like a step up above Sega Rally Championship, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of
visuals, I mean.
Yeah, so it's basically that's probably the best way to actually look at it. Yeah.
But it's cool.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Scotty?
Holy crap. I got notes and they're bullet points, but there's a lot behind them each. First, I'll touch on the Dreamcast Live and Dreamcast Talk community. Or wait, did you talk yet, Graham? I don't want to step over your...
I did mention stuff about that, but with the anticipation that you were going to sort of talk about it. So I briefly mentioned what's happening, but yeah, go for it.
Okay, awesome. I'll pull the curtain back over everything, and now I'll talk about my opinions. So no, Dreamcast Live and Dreamcast Talk is an amazing community. That's the online community that's still playing stuff today that supplied Graham and me and Chris. All of us have Dream Pies. I forget that all of us do have Dream Pies.
Yeah.
Which
to show
is,
one to the camera.
Yeah, which unfortunately... So I'll nip this in the bud. We had planned on having a couple hours dedicated to playing online during the marathon, but that was going to be between Chris, Graham, myself, and TJ. Long story short, not all of everybody's able to do that, so it's not going to happen during the marathon, but I like to think that somewhere down the line we are going to have more online stuff happening. And that aside, though, great community, very friendly, very tech savvy, because it is very much a small community creating these machines that let your Dreamcast use a current internet connection to play things online still. They do have regular meetups still. Quake is on Fridays typically. They do Alien Front Online, Phantasy Star Online. Sports titles that are getting reinvigorated with their online modes are playable now and stuff. So that's really cool. So that's awesome that community exists. Indie games. We could have a whole podcast on Dreamcast indie games because I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games right here with these crazy stuff. You see a lot of like
I found 6 on my shelf. Stuff. Yeah, awesome stuff.
When the indie scene first took off, it was mostly shmups, but they've expanded outward on that with a lot of like JRPGs and platformers and stuff. One game that I want to give a shout out to that more people need to play is Alice Dreams Tournament. We had that a couple years on the marathon, but this thing does crazy stuff with the VMU, and they actually, part of their Kickstarter was essentially backing their lamp that goes over the VMU so that you can use your VMU at night or without the lights off or whatever. And there are modes that use the VMU, and you have to actually look at it's a Bomberman style party game. you have to look at the VMU to see yourself when players looking at the TV cannot see you, like different dark modes
Oh my
and
God.
like light and dark stuff. It's really cool.
There's a game on the Wii U like that. It's like a Luigi style game, like a Mario game, where players looking at the main screen couldn't see the person who had the Wii U controller thing. I played that at an expo once. Awesome.
It reminds me of like Four Swords on the GameCube or Pac-Man Versus or stuff like that. But along with the indie stuff, of course, want to mention Gunlord is a really good like Turrican thing. And one that someday will release, Elysian Shadows, has a lot of hype behind it. Hopefully that game still comes out. And overall, just like the indie scene, Josh Prod is is it one? It's not just one dude. It's a company. It's some devs that are making stuff. The indie scene is so strong and it's so great that every year at MagFest or at Too Many Games, I will pick up at least one Dreamcast indie game, hoping to showcase it on the marathon. If not, it's just good to have a new buying. We're still buying new Dreamcast games. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that those exist, and all the ones that Chris mentioned as well there.
Yeah, there's in fact, Dreamcast Junkyard sort of spoke about Josh Prod actually putting out a load more games coming soon. We've got Alice Sisters, Rocketron, I'm not going to be able to say this right, Satas Zeus or something next. Tough Guy, Supercharged Robot, Wolf Flame. Those are a few games that are coming out from Josh Prod. Yeah, which is awesome. Really excited to see those games coming out, really.
Yeah, there's one that I'll mention again, or also is Alice's Mom's Rescue.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sloppy title, but I popped this in during one marathon and I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to like this. It's a weird, clunky platformer, but it is made with speedrunning in mind, and people were loving that thing, and I thought no one would care about it. There is a sequel coming out called Alice Sisters, so it's the more insane, the better. It's just cool to see this niche stuff that happens that, AAA studios are not going to do because they're too afraid to not make money.
Yeah. And one other very quick thing, one of the guys behind the Dream Pie, Luke Benstead, he's working on a new 3D game engine for the Dreamcast, which other developers and stuff can be able to use. And it's showing some early screenshots, and it's pretty cool what he's being able to do with it. So hopefully we'll see even more 3D games coming out. So that's pretty exciting. So moving on, this is sort of going back to one of the questions we had earlier in the show. We are going to look at Dreamcast games that we missed, games we wish we got to play, but we didn't get to back in the day. So if money wasn't an object, availability wasn't an object, which games would we love to be able to get on and play with, really? So who wants to go first? I'll leave that to one of you guys.
I'll let Scotty go first because I went first.
Okay. So mine are. So we're talking about things we missed. Despite the fact that I own it now, and also the microphone that you guys saw, I totally missed out on Seaman, and but there's no way I could play that now as an adult with how demanding of your time that game is. It's very much a real-time virtual pet. Like, if anyone remembers the Tamagotchis, it's that, but a video game. So you have to turn on your Dreamcast and interact with your console and stuff. But it was such a batshit insane idea. Leonard Nimoy was the narrator in it. It's so crazy that I'm not even explaining how the game works, and I'm saying all this stuff. So for those that have no idea, Seaman, not that stuff, but an actual fish human. You hatch it from an egg or something, I think, and then you talk to him using the microphone, and he'll reply to you. He's a total douchebag, and interact with you and be like, "Well, that's why no one loves you," or it's really bad stuff that he'll say to you like that. But you turn the Dreamcast off, and it wouldn't even. I'd have to replace my lithium battery now that I think about it. It uses that to continue, so that when you come back, if you come back in a week, he might be dead, or he might be like, "I thought you forgot about me." I don't know what he sounds like. He doesn't sound like Eeyore, but such a crazy cool idea. Did either of you guys play that when it was relevant at all?
Yeah.
I didn't. No.
Oh, you did?
I was
cool.
Super. I was gonna say I was super into Seaman.
There's the title.
I was so excited for it that the developer, the creator, Ute Saito, I believe his name is, had this cool kind of viral marketing blog that he ran. It was called Ute.net, I believe, or Ute something like that.
Yeah.
This was this like viral marketing website where this guy was like an archaeologist or something, and he was on the hunt for Seaman. He was trying to discover the real life Seaman, and they had all these like cool like historical photos that you could do on there, and he would create blog entries because he'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go out to like somewhere in Africa, try to find, there's been reports of Seaman there, and so he'd go there, and like it was all would update in like real time, and it would all lead up to like the game's release. And so every few days would be a new blog update, and I would remember going onto the website and reading it and getting so excited about Seaman finally releasing on the Dreamcast. And I played it a lot. I really like that game, but like you, Scotty, there's no way I could go back and play all of that today. It's just one of those things that it's going to live on in my own memories, I think, forever.
Yeah,
I didn't know all about that crazy blog and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I wrote a feature on the website about it for a long time ago called like Crazy Sega Marketing or something like that they did for it.
Yeah,
right.
So check out the website and learn all about it.
Sorry. And then I'll mention this one briefly because Graham's going to go into it. Another one I missed out on, I think most of the world did, is Sega Gaga. I'll let Graham talk more about that. But the other one is Skies of Arcadia. Because I am such a big fan of Panzer Dragoon Saga, and most of the team that worked on Skies of Arcadia. I recently acquired Skies of Arcadia, but I have not. I haven't. I've maybe put an hour into it. I mean, it's JRPGs and me, man. I know that I would enjoy that, especially when as soon as I got into the open area for the first time, I was like, man, this feels a lot like Panzer Dragoon, like Saga, and I didn't know that then that there was a lot of members of the team from there on this one. But yeah, those are a couple of my blind spots. I had a hard time thinking because I was like, every time I kept thinking of Saturn games that I haven't played, that are white whales for me and stuff. But those are a couple of mine for the Dreamcast that I could think of anyway.
Yeah. And as you know, I'm a massive fan of Panzer Dragoon Saga. The closest game I've played to Panzer Dragoon Saga probably is Skies of Arcadia. So,
yeah,
you know, it's probably my second favorite RPG of all time. I love that game so much. But yeah, so games that I'm just going to try and go through these quite quickly. But Sega Gaga, that's a game that, you know, I remember vaguely hearing about it when the Dreamcast discontinued, but never got to play it. Was it a Japan-only game? In my head, it was.
Yeah.
But I'm not,
It's never been officially translated.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, there's a fans translation sort of happening.
It's kind of if you don't know about Sega Gaga, it was released around the time that Sega released after Sega had announced they're discontinuing the Dreamcast. It was released on March 29th, 2001, so a couple of months after they officially announced it. And it's a role-playing simulation style game where you actually are in control of Sega, effectively, and they're losing. The whole point is Sega is losing their console market share to their rival, which is a company called Dogma in the game. But I think everyone knows it's Sony in real life. Yeah. And from everything I've read about this game, it's like loads of tongue-in-cheek stuff, like, you know, referencing the whole console wars and stuff at the time, and like, you know, about the PlayStation 2. And it's not like other, you know, get like, you know, Sim Hospital and Theme Park and stuff. It's not. It's got those elements of that kind of gaming to it. They've actually got sort of proper RPG style gaming and stuff, and also shoot 'em up style bits. There's like a whole actual sort of horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up section where you are like flying through space and stuff. And like one of the bosses like is in my head it's a Sega Saturn or something. Like you're shooting with one of the bosses with like a Saturn or Dreamcast. I can't remember which one it is now, but yeah, they've actually got like a digitized image of like the Dreamcast and whatever you're shooting and nice. Annoyingly, I actually forgot to do research for that bit of the game. I remember that being a massive thing. But yeah, it just sounds really bizarre, but also really awesome. And it's something I'd love to see a proper translation for. My understanding is most of it can be played in English, but there are quite a lot of segments which are in Japanese. So yeah, not completely playable for people who don't speak the language. But yeah, that's one game I'd love to play. Alien Front Online was another game, so that didn't actually come out over here in the PAL regions, and that was one of the games that you could use the microphone with. And yeah, I didn't really know it was a thing, and then I found out about it, and it just sounds like a really good game to play. Like I've seen some videos of people playing it. I'm like, this looks awesome. Like I wish I got to play it back in the day. I mean, nowadays if I played it, I probably think it's not that good. But I don't know.
For people that don't know, because the name doesn't sort of describes it, but it doesn't. To me, I've not played it, but the gameplay looks strikingly similar to Battle Tanks. If anyone's played that game, so which is only a good thing, in my opinion.
Cool. Yeah. One other game which I wish I played back in the day was Phantasy Star Online version 2. So Chris mentioned me and him here, and we played PSO a lot together online, but I had the version 1 version. And when version 2 came out, I vaguely remember it coming out, and I didn't care about it. For some reason, I thought, I've already got it. Why do I need this? I did not realize they added loads of extra areas, other weapons, like they upped the level cap for the players and stuff. Like it was so cool, the idea. And I've actually since got it and I've played it offline, and the new areas are amazing. They're really cool because my favorite area is the jungle area, the forest area in the original. But they've added other areas that are kind of like that. They're more natural beauty kind of areas, I guess, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I really wish I played it back in the day. I really wish I played it online. Sadly, I didn't, but I've got it now. So I guess I could play it online now, can't I? With the Dream Pie. Yeah.
Yep. Or Blueburst.
Or Blueburst. Yes, I could do that. But yeah, so that's me. Those are the ones I've missed out on, and yeah, wish I got to play. Yeah, Chris, I've forgotten. Chris, did you go?
I have not.
Chris, go for it.
Fine, because I don't really have a ton to say about it. But one game that I've always wanted to play and I just never have for whatever reason was Seventh Cross Evolution. It looks just so quirky and weird. It's one of these games where you basically have to evolve like yourself. There was a game called Yu-Gi-Oh! Back on the Super Nintendo, which I loved, and apparently it's like super expensive these days. But I remember renting that, and we eventually owned it. But it gives me a lot of like EVO vibes to it. But apparently you can after, I don't know 100% about this game, but I have watched some videos about it. But it looks like you eventually have to unlock different body parts that you can then swap out to navigate over different portions or solve puzzles and things like that in the game. It looks completely crazy. You can come up with these crazy concoctions of different combinations of body parts and stuff. You can go from looking like somewhat human-like to all sorts of weird things. Have you ever played it, Graham?
I own it. I have it right here.
That's a Japanese box.
Okay, I have the Japanese version. And yeah, of course, I played it, Chris. I actually did a What Did I Just Play feature for the magazine, if you remember. Because yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did. That's right.
I did, yeah. So I had heard about...
Wait. The audio completely cut out. You did a what on it?
I did a What Did I Just Play feature article for the magazine.
Oh, okay.
Sorry if they didn't go through properly. I've kind of got excited and started shouting on the microphone, which probably didn't help. So I knew about this game. I knew of the name. I had no idea what it was. So that's why I kind of did it for that article, because I thought, I'll play it. Looking at the back of the box, it does, because it's in Japanese, it's hard to see on the cameras, but there's like a cool sort of robot kind of space dude in the back and stuff. So I had no idea what to expect. For some reason, I thought it might be a shooter, kind of shoot 'em up game. But yeah, Chris, you sort of nailed it on the head. It's kind of like I think one game to compare it to is Spore on PC. Oh. You start off as like this little amoeba blob type thing, and then you basically suck up algae and stuff in the water, and then you start to grow and turn into like a fish, and then you basically, the whole point is you're evolving and you get new abilities, but you don't just turn into like a fish and then turn into something else. You turn into something else by getting new limbs and body parts and stuff, so you can get some really crazy sort of amalgamations. And I wish if you're able to go back and read the issue that I talked about, I can't remember which issue it is, but I actually have a screenshot of one of the crazy things that I turned into. And there's a few levels. I can't remember, it's basically split up into levels, and at the end of each level there is a boss battle. And it's just a really weird game. And effectively you start off like quite low down, like on like a little planet, and then I never finished it. My understanding is you do actually go to space or near space or something. Like you really do evolve into like a more powerful creature. So
I think there's multiple endings because I just saw one ending where the guy evolved and he had a woman with him into humans, but they looked kind of like cavemen. He had a fist fight 3 kangaroos and then had to fight a woolly mammoth. He killed the woolly mammoth and the 3 kangaroos, and he beat the game. And the ending was them cooking 2 like I guess woolly mammoth legs in a fire, and then just like hugging next to each other, and that's how the game ended.
Just
wow,
another day.
That's it's a really fun game though. Like, and even Japanese. Once you the Japanese version, a lot of the menus are actually in English, but there's some Japanese stuff in there. But yeah, it's easy to find a guide online to tell you what you're doing and stuff. But yeah, really good game, really accessible. If you can get the American version, do. If not, Japanese version is a bit cheaper, I think. So yeah, check it out. Okay, so now we're moving on to our next section, which are the overlooked Dreamcast games out there. Now, we're not talking about the best Dreamcast games on the system, but these are games that we think are actually pretty good and often overlooked through time. So when you talk about, like, you see those lists online of best Dreamcast games, these games very rarely get picks, but we think they actually deserve a bit of a shout out. And we think if you've got a Dreamcast and you haven't played them, check them out. So, Chris, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I think one of the most overlooked games that I just don't think it gets enough credit for being a decent game, and people just don't really talk about it, especially when they talk about Dreamcast RPGs. The one I want to talk about is Time Stalkers, which I really, really enjoyed. I would say it's in that second tier of Dreamcast games where you have, Skies of Arcadia, you have Grandia 2. I mean, those are really the big hitters. Then I think in that second tier, you have like the Evolution games. You have Time Stalkers, and you have a few of the others. Like there's some action RPGs like Record of Lotus War and Silver and some of those. But I think Time Stalkers, for me, that was my favorite of that kind of like second tier of Dreamcast RPGs.
Yeah.
It did some really cool stuff. The idea is that like you're this, he almost looks like a vampire, but he's like dressed up like almost like something in like, I don't know, just this weird coat, and he's got really spiky ears. He's got like fangs and stuff. It's weird, but part of your world is like kind of broken away, and it's getting, all these worlds are coming together and stuff. So it's like I guess like time space is somehow being disrupted, and large portions of other worlds are coming into this one piece of your world and getting attached to it. So as the game goes on, the level area, kind of like the main hub world, I guess, continues to get bigger, and more NPCs starts coming, and it unlocks more stuff. But you're essentially going into different like dungeons and caves, and going in and trying to defeat go through and kill them all and get through. It does do some cool things. It introduced basically like the Pokemon style of like being able to collect pets and get them on your side. And then if you do that in a dungeon, they go back to this like little pin area, kind of like a little farm that you have, where they go, and you have to like go and feed them and help them, and then they can join you eventually, and they're kind of like your helper pets, like when you go into the dungeons and stuff, which is kind of neat.
That's cool.
The one thing that I do remember people really didn't like about the game was after you come out of a dungeon, I think a lot of your level would reset, and so you'd go back down to like level 1. But I think you still kept a lot of your abilities and things like that you gained. You wouldn't lose everything. I just really like the characters. I remember the dialogue, and you had this like really fancy looking butler guy like that come into your house, and because you're meant to be this kind of I don't know, maybe like some sort of like nobleman, I guess, from like long ago, like like the 15 or 1600s or something in our world, I guess. But I just remember it just being a lot of fun. It was very quirky. And I bought it when it first came out, and then I must have sold it or did something to it. But then I remember years later going back and buying it again. And I got it for $1 on eBay. I remember, like,
Oh,
all I
wow.
had to pay was like shipping or something. It was like a couple bucks. The guy ended up like not shipping it off for a very long time, and I kept like getting really angry. And I was about to like open up some sort of issue with them or whatever,
Pass?
so I could get my money back or just get refunded or whatever. But he ended up finally shipping it, and he ended up putting $1 in with the game. So I essentially got it for free.
Aw,
Oh,
that's really sweet.
I forgot it cost you.
Shipping on that game, and which is only a few bucks. So I thought it was
Yeah.
pretty funny that I ended up getting Time Stalkers essentially for free off eBay.
I do actually remember, Chris, you had a Time Stalkers review on Dreamcast as well. And that's
Did
where
I?
I know most of the knowledge I know about Time Stalkers is from your review.
Yeah.
And that's what you mentioned there about the levels being reset. That's one thing that put me off playing it. But now you've just mentioned it again. It kind of, I want to play it. I do want to play this game. It looks quite good. So yeah, I think I'm going to give it a try. I feel like I actually own it. I was just looking at my shelf. I can't see it, but I vaguely remember having it. So yeah, I have to double check if I have got it or not. Yeah. Did you have any other overlooked Dreamcast games, Chris? Or
That was my biggest one, and as you're saying that, I have found it.
What?
I
the
found my
review?
review
Yeah.
of,
Oh,
the Dreamcast Realm website.
Yeah.
So you can go to dreamcastrealm.tripod.com.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'll read you the summary, and then I'll give you my scores real quick. I say, all in all, Time Stalkers is not a bad game. It's just not that good either. Like I said, you'll be better off playing the other two AAA Dreamcast RPGs, but if you're one of those nerdy guys who spends his weekends locked in his room, you might want
like
to
an anime fan on prom night.
Oh my god. You might want to check this out instead of beating Skies of Arcadia for the 4th time. I was very aggressive back then.
Asshole.
Damn. I don't know what I was
Holy crap.
I guess I also go on this like really obscenity laden like
I'm sure
thing
you do.
earlier on in this review. Wow.
Listen, you
That,
piece of shit. You're not leaving your mom's basement anytime soon, so you should play this instead, you loser.
I don't
Oh,
know.
wow.
Man. Apparently I was very mad in this review about losing your levels. So I was not happy about it.
Yeah, like you just mentioned, restarting each dungeon.
Overall, I gave it a 6. So
Out of 10?
So
6 out of 10.
wow.
Okay.
So
But do
But,
you feel
like-
have you warmed up to it more now since that review? Because it sounds like you have.
I remember it. I definitely remember it more fondly than I think I did at the time. Like I remember it being kind of I think I was more upset because I thought it could have had a lot of promise to it.
Right.
Like it could have been a much better game, but they made some just stupid decisions. But overall I really liked it. Maybe I'll stream it one of these days and just kind of go
Yes.
through it and just
Let's do it.
I think
Cool.
maybe we'll do that, Graham, on our Friday like Chris and Graham play days.
I think we should. Yeah.
One of these people will pick up some
Well,
Time Stalkers.
You know you have to call it, of course, the stream.
What's that?
I'd buy that for $1.
Nice.
Yep, that's all I have.
Cool. So, Squally, what about you? What are your overlooked Dreamcast games?
Yeah, I talk about it all the time. Introduced Corey to it. Rachel loves it as well. Ill Bleed on the Dreamcast was such a weird, campy, awesome, bizarre thing. The thing on the back of the box really says it all. Ill Bleed delivers a badly needed transfusion to the quote "been there, done that" end quote horror game genre, and it's so hard to describe this game to anyone. So it's become a staple in the marathon. We used to switch it out between this and Blue Stinger because Blue Stinger's made by the same Crazy Games. That's what they're called, is Crazy Games. It's such a weird. It is in the most direct sense of the of the statement, it is a survival horror game because you do have your senses that you have to learn to use to avoid traps while you're getting through this murderous theme park carnival crap lands. And you have these goggles that you wear to see traps and scan them in and out. I don't know how to explain this game. I really don't. So it is very much one that we just pop it in and we go. So the plan this year at the marathon is Corey's going to try to get through the first level, which we've never done on stream during the marathon. Him and I practiced it recently, and it was good to go. Ill Bleed is such a gem. I will stand by saying there is no game out there like it. It is one of a kind. If someone can find a game like it, please tell me, because I would love to play those as well. That's why it's one of my favorite games. And then the runner up to that, Tokyo Bus Guide.
Oh yeah!
What the hell?
That game is great.
You heard and saw Chris and Graham's reactions. Like, that is a game to play with friends. Maybe get some drinks involved, but it is so weird. A single player simulation games are much bigger in Japan. Like, there's I recall reading about the train simulator game, like the monorail almost thing, that has a controller that is literally one button and the stick shift or whatever it is, accelerator stick or something, released in Japan, I think for Dreamcast, pretty sure for PS2. But Tokyo Bus Guide is literally that. You are a bus driver in Tokyo. You have to be sure to turn your turn signal on, use your brakes, signal, open your door, close your door, turn slowly, don't speed up, follow the speed limit. Like, it's crazy that it is a simulation game. And I don't remember. Oh, it was recommended by someone on Reddit to us, because we did pre-marathon posts on Reddit. Like, what weird games do you want to see? What's some good games that no one talks about? And Tokyo Bus Guy was on there, and it's the best post we've ever done related to the marathon, because it's a weird thing. Tokyo Bus Guide.
Yeah, and both those games you mentioned, I experienced for the first time during last year's marathon. So Ill Bleed, I was like, wow, this game is really strange, but also awesome. And then Tokyo Bus Guide, I vaguely remember this actually being shown in Dreamcast magazines. I'm thinking, this looks like the worst game ever. That's probably, I think Chris has said this as well, is the highlight of my marathon last year. I thought it was so much fun. It was just nuts. It's like, how was this game made, and why would they not make more of it? Because it's so good. Like, it doesn't sound like it, but it really, really was good. Oh man, I'm definitely up for more of that this year. It's so much fun.
I'm so ready. That's always a highlight of the thing. It's because people are watching us play that, and they're like, how are they having fun with a bus driving game? Because you always hear the memes and talk about bus driving simulator, whatever, the Penn and Teller game, Desert Bus. That's it. This is not on level with that at all.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real video game versus like you just literally having to drive, like on a straight road in the desert of like Nevada. This was an actual real game, and it's challenging. It's a lot harder than it seems, and you're just driving a bus to try to pick people up, and that's fun. It's weird that it is, but it's a SEGA game.
I think it's the ultra realism and how quickly you're penalized that makes it so good. There's something about that. It's like, because you see people playing it like, this looks easy, but when you're actually playing it, it's like, oh my god, this is so. We barely got past that first right hand turn when we played it of the marathon last year. Like, so many of us took go. It's so funny.
Yeah, the Dreamcast, the marathon clips that we have, the clips video on our YouTube, it's worth checking out for the Tokyo Bus Guide sections alone, because Chris is just screaming at Graham, and there's just chaos. I'm sure Chris is just in a blind rage when Graham's trying to play this game. It's great.
Oh, it's so good. Man.
Those are
I've got a couple of games as well. I've mentioned this quite a few times on the show, so I'll be brief with it. It's Speed Devils. I love Speed Devils. I think it's such an often overlooked racing game. It's kind of an arcadey style racing game, but there's a bit more to it. So it's not realistic at all, but the levels are really fun. That you have like moving obstacles and levels. Like, you have like a T-Rex that comes out on like a Hollywood level. On like other levels, you've got like boulders that come out. There's one level which has got like a freaking tornado twister thing going through it. So like, you occasionally get picked up by it and thrown around. There's also like a gambling element to it, where the rivals that you race against, after the first sort of season, they start to actually challenge you to stuff. So it might be to burst a police radar. So you have to go over the speed limit and burst this police radar to get money. Or it could be they want you to try and beat someone else in the race, or they do a 1-to-1 race with you for their car. So when you beat them, if you lose, they take your car, and you have to make sure you've got enough money to buy a new car. Otherwise, you're basically out of the game. That's it. Game over for you. Or if you beat
your pink slips.
It's exactly. It's literally like Fast and Furious. That's what it's like. And if you beat them, you get their car. And the great thing is, they're not in for the rest of the season. They're not in it because they don't have a car. They're not in the rest of the season.
I didn't know that.
And the next season, they start with one of the basic cars. So they could have one of the best cars that you get off them, and then the next season they've got like a really basic car. So that's just one of those little touches in this game I absolutely love, and it's just really fun. 2-player on it is terrible, though. I will say that.
I was going to say, don't bother with 2-player.
Oh, wow. It's like they kind of got some of those features and stuff in the single player in there, but it's nowhere near as good. Single player is where it's at for this game. It's so much fun. Me and my friend used to play it a lot, not on 2-player, on single player. We used to take it in turns because we realised very quickly
Cool.
2-player was
Interesting.
terrible. Another game which I want to mention, which often is chosen as a top Dreamcast game, and I don't think anyone's going to argue against it, but I still feel it does not get enough credit. And that is, I've actually got 3 copies I found out. Metropolis Street Racer. Over the years, I managed to pick up multiple copies of it. I have a copy at my parents' house. I don't know how. But yeah, I don't have this many cases on my shelf. But Metropolis Street Racer is, if you don't know about it, it is the forerunner to Project Gotham Racing, which was on the Xbox.
Right.
It is a very realistic game. You drive in realistic cities. It is one of the first games to actually do that properly. And when I'm not saying they've taken a style of New York or, where it's got London, San Francisco, and Tokyo in it. It hasn't got a style of those. It's literally got recreated cities in it. And when you actually look at how much detail went into the game, it's insane. And the Dreamcast Junkyard, actually, shout out to them, they've got quite a few articles about how much work went into it and all there's other hidden stuff in it. There's like these weird missing posters on some walls of like missing people in certain areas, like in London. Go check out the Dreamcast Junkyard for those articles because it's actually quite fascinating. Yeah.
Why? What?
But I feel like this was one of those games that really sort of showed how good the Dreamcast was, and it's often just overlooked and how great it was. And the other great thing about it is the realism of the sound effects. When you drive past buildings and stuff, you actually hear the and it's actually done like almost in real time effectively. And it's just insane. And what they did with the game is beautiful. It looks really good. The city. Oh, this is how realistic it is. When I was younger, I never went to London really. Like I went on school trips when we were on a bus or whatever. We got to London. We went out. We stepped out the bus. We're at the place we need to be, like a museum or whatever it was. So I'd never really gone to London. I played this game. I played it tons to death pretty much. Started going to London more and more as I was getting older. And I knew where I was in London because of Metropolis Street Racer. That's how good it was. That's how realistic it was. I've been here before. Wait, no, I haven't. I've been here in Metropolis Street Racer. I know exactly if I walk down this road, I'm going to end up here. And yeah, it's insane. I mean, London's changed a bit over the years now because, cities move on and stuff. But the main features of London are still accurate in Metropolis Street Racer. It's nuts. And I think this is something that just doesn't get picked up enough. It's so good. So yeah, Metropolis Street Racer.
Cool. Coincidentally, that's also how Graham learned how to drive.
Yeah. Just on that game, one other thing I loved about it was that depending on the time zone that you're playing in, when you played in America or Japan tracks, it'd be that actual native time over there. So, for example, if I'm playing, if I'm playing in London at 12 o'clock, like 12 p.m., it would be I don't actually know the time difference with San Francisco, but it'd be like the morning in San Francisco, and it'll be nighttime in Japan, if that makes sense. When you race on those tracks,
so it would be, if you use like current time, it's 2 p.m. mine and Chris's time right now, 2 in the afternoon, but it's 7 o'clock at night your time.
Yes.
So if I was playing in London, if I was driving through London, the sun would be setting maybe right now.
Yes, exactly, and that's
so cool.
It's a great idea. So if I played nighttime my time, it'd be more like afternoon or morning in Japan. It's brilliant. I loved it.
That's nuts.
So yeah, and then Project Gotham Racing,
kind of stuff. But
yeah,
sorry, tangent.
Anyway, So yeah, those are my picks. So I guess that kind of wraps up the show, everybody. I feel like we've gone through the highs and lows of the Dreamcast there. Some good times, some bad times, some stuff in the middle. Great memories. Thanks to everyone who sent in their memories and experience of the Dreamcast. It's really good.
Yeah,
great to get all that feedback and stuff. And as we said before, we're doing this all in aid of next week. We're doing the Dreamcast 24-hour Dreamless Dreamcast Marathon. Sorry, I don't think I've got the title right there, Scotty.
Nobody does, because it's horrible and I didn't think of it, so I won't blame myself.
That's fair enough. But very quickly, Scotty, do you want to quickly mention all about that? Because you're the best person for that, I think.
So September 12th of this year, we are doing the Dreamcast Dreamless 24-hour Marathon on our Twitch page, starting 7 a.m. Eastern Time, going to 7 a.m. Eastern Time. 24 hours, raising money for ExtraLife, which is a really good cause. And you can actually join the team. Staff members are joining the team because we're raising money for Pittsburgh Children's Hospital. Anything that goes donated under my name. Brett, anything goes towards that. Towards his name is through West Virginia Children's Hospital, I think. And then Corey actually just hopped on. He's benefiting a hospital in Arkansas. So it's for a really good cause. These are difficult times to begin with, so it's even better than we can. It still blows my mind that we play video games to raise money for children. Like playing video games is benefiting someone. So it's nuts and awesome. But the overall marathon showcases the Dreamcast and its heavy hitters and really niche awesome titles like Pen Triathlon, Tokyo Bus Guide we mentioned, Die Hard Arcade, crazy cool stuff. You'll see the basics like Jet Set and Sonic Adventure we start out with. We do have money goals to, if we hit those, we'll play certain stuff. We'll stop everything and play the big hitters for those are Power Stone 2, Space Channel 5, and Sonic Shuffle. If we raise $666, we'll stop everything within reason. We might have to like cap out the hour or something and then play Sonic Shuffle. That game is torture and fun for everyone because it's entertaining as we suffer through it. It should be called Sonic Suffer. But yeah, September 12th, 7 a.m. Eastern on our Twitch page. I've been doing posts about it. Did an unboxing for the Sonic Peach Ring energy drink towards it. Hop on the website, follow us on Twitter, and you'll be keeping up to date with that. September 12th, 7 a.m. And shout outs to our sponsor, Warp Zone. They always help us out with donating games. Oh, and you can win a Dreamcast console. I didn't even mention that. If you're the most active in the chat, if you view the longest, we tally those things up, and you can win a Dreamcast console. This year, we're doing it designated to the region that the person lives in. In previous years, it's only been an American console that indirectly, we didn't mean to, has caused some issues. So it'll be region specific. You could win a console and help, donate towards kids that need it in ExtraLife.
Hey, awesome, amazing. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all your Dreamcast stuff. And yes, stay tuned next weekend for that 24-hour marathon. And I guess we're out of here. So keep on dreaming, everybody. It's still alive.
Hashtag still thinking.
That's what I meant to say, damn it.
See ya.
So we'll wrap that bit up. We'll draw that sad tale to an end, and let's move on. I guess you're kind of right. It's not really happy that it happened, but what was that?
That was Odin the Green with me.
Yeah. I didn't have
So I had this, like, whoa. Okay.
You have an audience out here, Graham, so you got to learn to work through some background noise.